Folks, 2025 is finally over, and you know what that means. It's time for this annual tradition, the year-end recap video. We are surrounded by plushies again, and we have a shorter stack of games this year, significantly shorter than last year. We're also doing this low-budget style. We are doing this the lazy way. No shot, reverse shot, camera angles, or lapel mics this year. I didn't want to be bothered with that because it's New Year's Day, which is always when we film this, and it's been a hell of a year. Before I forget with the plushies, this one is mine. And I feel like having him in the frame is like when those YouTubers do like the YouTuber apology videos, you know what I'm talking about? And they have their dog in their lap. They're like, "Hi, we're so sorry we abused our children." And like, that's what it feels like, but he's great. I'm going to set him off of the side of the frame now. Yep. Because he wants to keep falling over because he's beside me.
He's just a baby.
He is fantastic. Real quick, I don't want to go on about this for too long, but 2025 kind of sucked. I'm not going to lie. Even outside of personal stuff, which is the main reason why it sucked, 2025 is quite possibly the worst year that I have lived to see so far from like a socio-political, socio-cultural standpoint. And less said about that, the better. And I think if I am describing it as a bad year from a socio-political, socio-cultural standpoint, then I think that already has that already implicitly has all of my takes about what exactly happened this year. So I don't even need to elaborate any further on that. And but yeah, life sure got in the way a lot this year. But we did accomplish a lot of really cool things, a lot of really fun things that were pretty big milestones in our personal hobbies, personal aspirations, and professional careers. But we do have a considerably smaller list of games completed this year. Both of us do.
Yep.
And so I'm going to be mixing in some other media because I read some books this year. More than what I usually do. It's only like 3 or 4, but it's more than what I usually do. So to kind of talk about what we got done this year, you know, January was right off of the heels of finishing the most ambitious video that I have made so far, a video that has done very, very well. The most successful video I've made in terms of effort to reception, effort to engagement, response, etc. It was pretty equitable in terms of the amount of effort it took to make and the response that it got, and I couldn't be happier with it. It was an awesome video. I talked about it in the recap of last year because it came out technically at the very tail end of 2024, and so I was taking a break from videos for a while, and I was focusing more on the cosplay stuff that we do, and I made one of the most ambitious new cosplays I've ever made an entire video about that build process. It's on the channel, and did what I set out to do with like upskilling my crafting techniques in terms of cosplay, like trying a lot of new construction methods. And this was a blend of every different technique under the sun, whether it's sewing or foam armor or wig styling or 3D printing or painting, etc. It was all of those things, and it was a learning experience in every single one of those categories. And that took me from like January all the way to May, was that whole process, while dealing with a death in the family and a bunch of other associated fallout as a result of that. And then from like May to September was just a blur.
We took a break from like everything, basically.
Yeah, and I didn't really get around to doing the Darkspark video until after that. So it was like October when that video went up, when I was like hoping to have that video done like the beginning of 2025. But I still somehow miraculously managed to finish the Transformers game retrospective in 2025. So as of this calendar year, 2026, it is done. I kept to this I realized as I was looking back through the older videos, I released 2 of them a year, interspersed with other video essays. And so as 2025 was coming to an end, I was like, okay, I need to go ahead and get the Devastation video done. And it ended up being one of the most fun videos I've made in years, if you haven't seen it. And it ended up being one of the videos in that retrospective that I'm the most proud of. So I published that on the 28th or the 29th of December. So just barely got that done. And there's a bunch of other little things here and there in 2025 that I'm proud of. But those, I guess, were the big things was, you know, surviving through life with a major death in the family, being forced out of my comfortable position with my stable job into kind of a no-win scenario that resulted in me having to get a new job. But then it was like, that new job is actually really nice, really stable. I'm doing really well with it. And have still been able to kind of dabble in each of my other hobbies at least a little bit. You know, we're upskilling video production, we're upskilling cosplay stuff. Barely did anything with the Zoids channel this year, which I'm upset about. I've had the Genobreaker model kit on the list of things to do since like July and haven't gotten around to it. And so hopefully I will find time in 2026 to build more model kits and upload more on that channel. And I'll kind of talk about maybe towards the end of this video what some of the plans for 2026 are. So if you want to talk about your stuff from 2025.
Yeah, so kind of the similar vein of January to May was working on Shion, which there's a lot of things that I wish to fix up on her and change and whatnot, but still super proud of how she came out. I also, last year was the year where I'm like, you know what? We're not having cons as a deadline anymore. I love myself now. MomoCon is no longer a deadline to have a cosplay done. Cosplays get done when they get done.
We're not crunching anymore.
I'm not doing it anymore. I can't keep living like I can't keep doing myself like this. And then I just took like 2 months, like June and July, of like anything creative. I think I played games more in the summer than I did any other point of this year. And by games, probably just the one we'll talk about. But I did do a couple of things art-wise that I'm super proud of. I joined a collab for Harvest Moon Story of Seasons, and I've drawn 2 characters for that. I need to post the second one, but I have drawn 2 characters for that. Getting out of my comfort zone. Group is super nice, super friendly. I appreciate them just creating this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing the finished product this year, because it's an anniversary for Harvest Moon this year.
Which one is it? We just learned about it earlier. Which one it was, right?
One in the anniversary, the 20-year anniversary of Magical Melody is this year,
yeah.
so it has to be an older one than that. But my brain doesn't know numbers. Clinton, edit this. I'm kidding.
It could be the 30th anniversary of the series. The series started in 96.
I think that is what it is. I think it is 30th.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. But not only that, I actually got to draw fan art for her birthday for Zane, which turned out really cool. I did a really cool perspective, like the coloring that I did. And I did a Christmas present for my good friend Avani that ended up they look amazing. I cooked so hard, like didn't even burn it a little bit. It turned out really good.
And it was four characters.
It's four characters.
4 complete colored background illustrations. Yeah.
Yep, the files are massive. But I guess the most positive part of my year, other than getting some of the artwork done at the end of the year, which seems to just be the trend for me, is I also got a new job, and I'm no longer in the legal field. I cannot believe how much I did not realize my mental health was suffering at my old job, and how much better it is now. Mostly because I cut like 3 hours of travel time out of my schedule. It's a work from home job, so I don't have to spend like an hour in the car. I can just get up and
per day.
Yeah, per day. Like that's 5 hours of my awake time a week in a car coming home. So
You know, I've gained back.
that I have now gained back, and I feel like I'm still kind of reeling in that I have it, and I need to start being a little bit more strict of a routine of it, but I am very happy about it.
I guess we're going to go ahead and start with the games that we finished this year, which again is not many, not nearly as many compared to the previous years, and I do wish I had gotten several more finished, but I know what I was doing when I would have otherwise had leisure time to play games. So it is what it is. And you've got the first one in chronological order.
In chronological order, in January, I started and finished Mass Effect 1, which I put in parentheses again, question mark, because I think I did it shortly after we just talked about our last year in-year video of playing it the first time. So I did my playthrough of Lottie Shepard, and...
Because in 2024, I had played, your first exposure to the game was me playing it as part of game night on the PS4 version, and now you went back and replayed it yourself on PC is what happened.
Yes. So, my playthrough, and I decided a couple things on my route. My character's backstory is a little different than yours, but I learned that playing the female version, there is some interesting different dialogue that I am like, some of the guys that you interact with are a little, they say some things.
They just treat you differently than if you're a male shepherd?
They treat you absolutely different, and I like threatening them and knowing that I can beat the shit out of them if I like watching them cower in fear because I know I'll kick their ass. So, but I also decided not to romance anyone. So there was I was streaming it with a friend for a little bit. There was a back-to-back where I rejected Kaden, and then I go to the next room and Liara's flirting with me, and I'm like, reject. And I'm like, just one right after the other. I'm like, wow, that felt awful. I felt so bad, but I was like, I don't want to go I was just like, I'm just not going to romance anyone. I thought I was going to romance Thane, but I really am probably just going to romance Garrus.
So you're skipping the romance in 1 to just save it for the 1 and 2.
Yep. So, but because I don't want it to be messy, but I do like the drama of dating Kaden and then the whole thing in 2. So I do like that drama as the relationship stuff goes, but I don't know. I'm not gonna be a messy bitch.
Yeah. Spoilers for Mass Effect 1 and 2. The game at least makes that choice a little bit easier on the player and doesn't guilt them as hard as they could, because they basically make it plausible that your partner in 1 would have moved on, and you're hooking up with somebody different in 2 is a sensible choice depending on your perspective on it. So they don't really guilt you as bad about switching romance partners as they could have, which is an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think you get some dialogue in 3 based on that. I know there's some interactions with if you interacted, if you dated Liara, then you dated Tali.
Yeah.
Oh, there's conversations that those two can have, or little snippets, or I have seen that, unfortunately, but it's okay. There was a moment where I had to. It was the guy that was a fan. Mm-hmm. I was trying to be listen, it's not that glorious as it can be. This is an example of you don't really know what you're selecting until you select it. Because I was this isn't what it's like. It's not as good as it seems. I put a gun to the man's face, being like, "Is this what you want?" I'm like, "No, it's not what I wanted to do."
You might have saved his life, because in my playthrough, he went and got himself killed he did something stupid and followed his heart with his dumb conspiracy theory and got himself shot by C-Sec. So
that's right.
Yeah.
But I put that gun in that man's face, and I never meet your heroes. That was one of those where it's like, never meet your heroes, we're assholes. I felt so bad. I also did the thing with Saren where I didn't have to do the first fight.
Which is just incredible. I can't believe that that's the thing you can do. Yeah.
I didn't, because I was just trying to be like, because in my head, Turians are all cats. And I'm like, and he was like, thank you for pitying me. I appreciate it. Like, and I was like, okay.
Even if he's a gross robot kitty at that point.
I still feel a little bad for him, but a little. Not a whole lot. I found some really good fan art too after that playthrough of him. I'm like, okay, I see what y'all are cooking. It's all right, but yeah. So, I look forward to playing. I have started 2. I had to restart 2 because for whatever reason, going from 1 to 2, my blonde character's eyebrows just disappeared, and I wasn't playing like a full 30 hours of my character with no eyebrows. So I had to restart the first section. So I'm now into playing 2 and having a good time, and we'll see what all I get different from your run to my run, and then
yeah,
it's fun. I'm having a good time.
So the first game that I finished this year, if I remember correctly, because I wrote a blog article about this and made its own video about it. And I think it was January 23rd that I finished this. And so full disclosure, I did not play a single game this year that was released in the calendar year of 2025. Not a single one. And so if you're expecting this recap to have a bunch of Expedition 33 and Silk Song and Hades 2, didn't play none of that shit. I don't have any plans to either. At least not for a good while. I do want to play the first Hollow Knight at some point, and that would eventually lead to wanting to play a Silk Song, but that is not a high priority in the slightest. But what I did beat, the first game I beat this year was Vanillaware's Unicorn Overlord on the Switch, and this is the first time that I have beaten a new RPG within a calendar year of its release since 2016 with Fire Emblem Fates and Pokemon Sun and Moon, respectively. It was the last time I beat an RPG in the calendar year of their release. So this released in March of 2024, and I had it beat by January of 2025. And so this is the most standout. This is the best new game that I finished for the first time in 2025 by a huge margin. The other games that I played that I enjoyed in 2025 were either replays or games in a different genre that just weren't as content rich and unique as this one. This one is extremely unique. So again, it's Vanillaware, it's Atlus, it is that beautiful 2D hand-drawn art style. It's a strategy RPG with a pseudo real-time thing where units move on the overworld of your battle map on a timer. So when you allow the timer to go, every unit moves in real time, but you can pause the timer to actually command where the units are going and then just let it play and they'll collide in battle. And it's way more complex than that. That's a incredibly basic overview of how the combat works. And I talked about this way more in depth in the blog review and the video review, which are basically the same script. And this game has pretty much all the right elements. It has an incredibly in-depth combat system that is very. It has a low floor but an incredibly high ceiling where you can get into it, and you don't necessarily have to interact with every single one of the mechanics on an expert level to beat the game on a lower difficulty level. But if you want to play it on the really high difficulty levels, this scratches a particular itch for those hardcore Fire Emblem fans, where the amount of min-maxing and overthinking of strategies you can do in this game is ridiculous. And I am just barely aware of the extent to which you can do that. And I do know some people that have played this on higher difficulty levels. That doesn't really interest me all that much, but it is very cool that it is there. And it is kind of a microcosm of, accessibility and difficulty, and how if you are willing to kind of invest the time in learning the mechanics, there's like a totally different type of game in there that you didn't even know was in there. And so this almost makes me want to make an entire video about game difficulty, which I plan on doing, and the way this game handles that is largely the inspiration for that. So I highly recommend playing this. This game is fantastic. I would have played this on the PS4 if the PS4 got physical copies of it in the West, but it did not. It was digital only, but there are physical PS4 copies overseas. Otherwise, it is PS5, Steam, and Switch. So Switch was the next best option at the time, and I guess still is for physical preservation. And
I haven't sunk my teeth into it
next
yet.
next one is Game Night, and you did control this, so this one is
I
yours.
did control this. Ratchet and Clank. I played the first one for the first time, which is really exciting because I remember seeing this game as a wee little lad and was not able to play it because I guess for whatever reason my parents just didn't pick it up. It has. I enjoyed everything about it, really. I thought it was super fun to play. I like the character interactions, the quips, the humor. It's so dumb, and I love it so much. I like our duo's relationship and watching them grow to like each other, because they sure didn't like each other at first. Ratchet wasn't really that nice at the beginning. I mean, he's still like a little snarky. He's like a snarky teenager, really. Like, he's just angsty and wasn't really in it for the right reasons to begin with. There was a couple moments where I did struggle playing it, but I think that's just a skill issue on me. I think I handed you the controller a couple times. I'm like, get me past this. I'm tired of looking at this. And I think it was with the poison area, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the Blargian homeworld that's been polluted by the villain. Yeah, so this game is so it's the character mascot platformers that are kind of the spiritual successors of the collectathons from the PS1 and N64 era. So, back then you had your Spyro, your Crash Bandicoot, your Banjo-Kazooie, your Mario 64, and then on the PlayStation 2 you had your Jak and Daxter, your Ratchet and Clank, your Sly Cooper, and this is my favorite trilogy of those three, even though I like all of them. And it's close. It is close. I do like, at least in the case of Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, I hold them in almost equal regard. They are very nostalgic childhood games for me. But this one edges the others out ever so slightly because it just has a lot more going on gameplay-wise and in its world. It has some really funky music. And it has this this like clunker junker phaser punk cartoon sci-fi look to it that is very unique, but also kind of a product of its time of the early 2000s. And it has this look of like, okay, it's a sci-fi setting with like space travel and teleporters and fancy weapons and gadgets and stuff like that, but everything is held together with bolts and rivets, and the robots have this very improvised, sort of ugly cartoon look to them. And the setting that this game takes place in is very much this this parody of like consumerism and ultra capitalism, where what if we took consumerism to such an extreme degree that you could just buy a flamethrower from a vending machine? And so the kind of reckless destruction and the goofiness of the reckless destruction you can inflict is almost like a tongue-in-cheek joke, almost. And then every character that you run into in this game is very cynical and very selfish, and almost all of them will try to extort you for money.
Yep.
And so you're like trying to get. There's one of the best examples of this is you save a guy who's a scientist from getting eaten by monsters, and he's like, "Oh, I have this one of a kind prototype for a new gadget. Do you want that? As because you saved me, I'll sell it to you at cost." And he's like, Ratchet's like, "You want to sell it to me for money? I just saved your life." And he's like, "Okay, I'll give you the employee discount." It's incredible.
Well, also you have like the main villain who is like the most like corporate greed, I sucked the life and poisoned the hell out of my planet, so I'm just gonna, because I am this like ultra rich like asshole, I'm just gonna go and grab chunks of other planets and just melt them all together, and I don't really care what happens, and if that also ends up the same way, I'll just do it again. I'm like, this just...
Yeah, not if it ends up the same way, when it ends up the same way.
Yeah.
He fully intends to do the same thing just for money. Like his sole motivation is money, and it is very much it's ironic how accurate this is to like true to life billionaires, where he's just like, I will literally cause a like global extinction just to make number go up, and like has no regard for sentient life whatsoever. Will just destroy anything and everyone in his path to make number go up, and it's honestly just like a real life billionaire.
Yeah. Also, good example of never meet your heroes, because the hero in this story is like working with him.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It starts with a Q.
Captain Quark. Yeah.
Quark. There we go.
Whose voice actor tragically passed away this about a month ago.
But yeah, so that is another example of poor Clank wanted to meet him because he thought he was going to help.
Yep.
And he was not going to help.
He was a shell, yeah.
Yep.
So, like I said, this is one of my favorite series. I'm glad we're finally starting you down the rabbit hole of this series. This is, of course, Insomniac Games, the people that made Spyro and later went on to make Resistance, and then like the PS4 Spider-Man game, etc. And I have such a fondness for that studio that I think I will at some point commit to doing a full video retrospective series of all of their games. And so possibly in the near future, expect a full video on just this game at some point. But you beat this, and then we played a few minutes of the sequel just to kind of, so you could see the improvements that the sequel makes in terms of gameplay, because this game it controls good, but the combat is almost like deliberately clunky. Like you are kind of limited by the controls in your movement, and so combat feels almost more like puzzle solving than it does it is more like puzzle solving in terms of what combination of weapon works against which enemy than it is about raw reflexes. And even though the sequel games control better and have more fluent combat, it removes the charm of this game's gameplay, which is that like puzzle solving element to it, where this game will always have a different appeal than the ones that came afterward, because the ones that came afterward were very much like, oh, because the game controls good, now you can just be in combat with any weapon you want, because you can dodge attacks and afford to chip away at enemies for a longer period of time, etc., etc. So, yeah, but glad we got through that. We played it on the PS3 HD version as well, but I do have a full trilogy copies on the PS2. So next one for me was actually another Switch game. I beat 2 whole Switch games this year, which is more than I've like ever beaten before. I don't use the Switch as often as the other consoles, but I played and beat the Metroid Prime remaster just in time for Metroid Prime 4 to finally release. And I do like Metroid Prime quite a bit. I am not a super hardcore Metroid fan. I do think this one is my favorite compared to the ones that came after, and also the 2D ones like Super Metroid that came before. Super Metroid is great, but I do think I prefer this one ever so slightly. It is just a little bit more fun to play. And most people that have nostalgia for this game played it on the GameCube, like when it first came out. I was not one of those people. It took me until the 2008 when my brother got a Wii for us to have access to backwards compatible GameCube games. and that is when I first played Metroid Prime, was in 2008. So that by that point, its cultural impact had been, huge for years, but also it had become a whole trilogy at that point. And but great game, classic. Most people know what it's about already, but it is really interesting how if you know how the 2D Metroids play, just how well this brings that formula into 3D, because the type of the non-linearity of finding hidden rooms and breakable walls and secret items and going off the beaten path and all that, they have changed that from 2D to 3D, and the way you move throughout the environment with the platforming and jumping and everything, it works so much better than it has any right to in first person and in 3D. They didn't really make much of any compromises to the Metroid formula by putting it in 3D, and it is very, very impressive that they were able to do that back in 2002. And the way the story is delivered to you is very interesting, because there's no dialogue, there's no voiced spoken dialogue in this game. All of the story is given to you through Samus's scan visor, which either analyzes details about the environment or reads codec logs from the space pirates and everything like that. And so the story is kind of just the story of the environment and the atmosphere, and you putting the pieces together as you go. So you'll scan a rock face, for example, and the visor will read this rock is made out of blah 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 material. It looks like it's however many years old, and it shows signs of wear from plasma blast. So there was a battle here or something like that, and you just get little context things. And then when you read the pirate lore, you get stuff about the titular Metroid Prime and all the experiments they did, where you're subject blah 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 was had the ability to regenerate itself and was absorbing different types of energy that were first thought to be lethal to it and all this other stuff, and you're slowly getting the pieces. And it's a very interesting way of delivering a story that, again, was pretty unique at the time. I think when most people look at this game on the surface, they assume it's just a first-person shooter, and it is just absolutely not. I would never even categorize it as such, even though you happen to be in a first-person camera shooting little lasers and stuff. It's not a shooter. You need to get yourself out of that mindset. It is very much in the same type of game as the previous Metroid games, and it has this very adventure game, almost survival horror in the way that you get the story, and the way that you feel isolated and alone, and you're really kind of taking in the atmosphere of the environment. So, and as for the remaster itself, it's fine. It does look slightly better. I know that there was some controversy around some textures that were changed, but I think it's a very minimalistic remaster where they didn't change a lot. And I think that's probably a good way of doing it, is just clean it up, make it run at a higher frame rate, maybe add some new control options, which they did, but don't change the core of the art style. There's lots of other remasters that get a lot of flack for changing the art style to a point where it doesn't even resemble the original, or there's assets or elements of the original that are lost in translation from one to the other. There's plenty of examples of that I could give.
The next game that we played, it was technically a game night game.
Yeah, this was game night again.
It was Unpacking, which you controlled.
For most of it.
I think I controlled very little of it. But basically, it is a story that is following along your character unpacking their house throughout different iterations of their lives. So it's really, you start in, their childhood bedroom, where you see what their interest is. You know that they like art because you see some of the little items. And then it's their college dorm. And some of those items follow along as you go. We see her move into a boyfriend's house, and all of us feeling very uncomfortable with moving her into her boyfriend's house, because there was no space for any of her stuff. Like, he made little space for her things, and, like, we had to put, like, her art degree under the bed, and we were all like, ew, I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, then she moves out on her own. She gets a place that's rough as hell looking, but we make it home. This is a spoiler, but, like, the next part is, like, moving in her significant other into her house, and then the final one is them moving into a bigger house because they're gonna have kids. And so it's really cool watching how this character grows and seeing the same stuff, but still with no dialogue, get the story. And the same vibes of like her ex not being her thing, and then how comforting it was when we were moving her new girlfriend's stuff in, and how, like, we made room for all of her stuff, their stuff meshed well, and then into the big house together. I don't know, it was just cozy. It wasn't a long game. I think it was like a couple hours.
It was about 3 or 4. We finished it in one sitting one day, yeah.
One sitting, one day, and I would recommend it for anyone. It's super cozy. It also, like, scratches, like, the little itch of organizing. But also it was fun just, like, figuring out where to put things together and be like, nah, I wouldn't put that there, but you played it, so you could probably talk about how the gameplay is better than I can.
Yeah, so the friend that we played this with, this is one of her favorite games of all time.
Yes.
And I get why. It definitely has this is one of the best examples of visual storytelling in a modern game that I can think of, because, again, no dialogue, no voice acting, no preamble about what the game is about. It is purely whatever you take away from it. It is, and they start you off in what you are assumed to believe is the main character's childhood bedroom, unpacking stuff, and then it's every stage of this character's life. And yeah, you do see the same reoccurring items as she gets into different places that she's living in. Of course, Aster being a menace, and then we hit the record button. The visual storytelling it's subtle, but it is just kind of like there's a lot of implicit meaning in the reoccurring items that you see. So you don't pick up on anything at first, but then when you've seen the same couple of items multiple times, or you see kind of a similar theming with some of the items, like you said, whether it's art tools, and then the art degree is kind of a character arc in and of itself, and then is it a teddy bear, I think, that she has? Like, there's like one stuffed animal that stays with her like her entire life kind of thing. And when she's living with the boyfriend, it is very much this. He has this very brutalist, ultra-modern looking house that is small, or apartment. It's very small and dark drab colors, and it has this just oppressive atmosphere. And that is nothing that the game tells you. It's just you pick that up through the visual design, and the gameplay restricts you a little bit in that part, because it doesn't give you hardly anywhere to put the items that you are unpacking, and so you're making a lot of compromises, like you said. And so it's another example of, like, you're maybe not having as much fun in that part of the game, gameplay-wise, but that's intentional, because it's trying to provoke that emotional response out of you, to be like, this is what it would be like to feel cramped and in this living situation that very much does not feel like home, and does not feel like a place where this person can be comfortable and relaxed. So very, very cool game from that standpoint. Like I said, the visual storytelling and the different emotional meanings you can kind of take away from just interacting with the same stuff. And I think with again, spoilers, when the reveal came at the end, where you realize that the main character's new partner is a woman, kind of came with, like, there's always a part where you're unpacking the character's clothes. Now we're really doing the apology video. And you are unpacking like additional sets of like underwear and like clothes you didn't see before. And you're like, hang on, there's a second woman living here, and you're packing your stuff together with their stuff, and so you're like, okay, this is clearly what that means. And then you get the payoff at the final scene, which we won't go into any detail about, but this is one of those true to form, stereotypically like cozy comfort Steam games. It was popular enough, like cozy comfort Steam indie games. It was popular enough to have a limited physical release on Switch, I believe, and I definitely recommend it. It is, it's one of those games that I'm sure some people would argue that a second playthrough or replaying it kind of takes some of the punchiness out of the story when you know what's coming, but I don't know. It is definitely a great game to do exactly what we did with it, which is to bring it to your friend, show it to them, make them play it, and like see their reaction, kind of thing to the emergent storytelling, and just play it through in one sitting and just be on that experience together. I think it's really fun for that reason.
I think so too. I liked it.
So the next one I beat, this was a short one, didn't take very much time at all. It was a Star Wars game that I never played as a kid. This is Jedi Starfighter. This is one of the tie-in games for Episode 2. So this was released either in 2002 or 2003. And I never played this as a kid. This is one of the ones I missed out on. And I saw some content on it around the time that I picked it up, and I thought, this might be like just a fun afternoon killer type of thing. And I got this at the Second Chance Toys place that opened up recently, which is, I guess it didn't open up super recently. It opened up sometime during COVID, so like sometime 2020, 2021. But really cool store that collects and resells vintage toys. But they have a pretty decent video game selection too. I've been kind of surprised with some of the stuff I've seen there. And so it's one of the games that I played. So when it comes to Star Wars games where you control a spaceship, there's definitely like a spectrum of gameplay there. So like on one end you have the PC 90s like X-Wing and TIE Fighter games that are very much simulations, where you have like a bunch of different keyboard functions where you can like allocate power to different parts of the ship, like the shields and the weapons, and it's like very technical. It's more of a simulation type of game. Pretty advanced game for my brother to beat as a kid. Now that I think about it out loud, so we had one of those when we were kids. My brother played it on the PC and beat it when he was pretty young. And then the other end is like the N64 and GameCube Rogue Squadron games, which are basically on rails, where there's not really that much complexity or challenge to the gameplay. This is somewhere in the middle where you do have like complete control of your ship and can fly everywhere, but it has pretty accessible controls. It's not super complicated, and there pretty much is only 2 styles of gameplay for the entire game, and I think it's like something like 15 to 20 missions. It was longer than I expected it to be, but it still could probably be beaten in like 4 to 6 hours, maybe a little bit longer. Nice, short, digestible, fun game that I guess I recommend, although I feel like most people, if they're Star Wars fans, have probably already experienced most of the games from that era, because that was like peak LucasArts era of like the prequel movies would come out and get like 6 games per movie as a tie-in kind of thing. So Unicorn Overlord that I talked about was pretty much the only game that I beat this year that was long. Every other game I beat was short, and again, that kind of shows you just how dire it was that I didn't have time to beat any other RPGs, because there's so many of them that I want to play. RPGs make up such a huge chunk of my backlog that not getting through any of them was pretty dire in 2025. But I already have several on my list, and I'll talk about what I want to beat in 2026 towards the end. But
my next game is a Steam indie game that was short. It was gifted to me by a friend. It was called Cat Cafe Manager. It's a simulation game, and it starts like any old like farm simulation game where you're inheriting a place from your grandparents, and you're fixing it up, and you're making friends with the people around town, and you're adopting cats. So your grandmother had this cat cafe. Something happened, or I don't know what happened, and now you're taking over, and basically you're running this cafe, and there's like 6 characters that are all like different like types. So like there's like a punk character who I can't remember his name right now, but I loved him. He was great. But it has like this very interesting story where this like, as you're befriending cats and befriending the villagers, I'm calling them villagers, the townspeople, this like mythical cat comes up, and you're like doing tributes to these cat statues to get like more perks. And you find out that there's like this company that is trying to buy up the land to tear it down. So it has themings of like industrialization bad sometimes. Like it's because the company is like dead ass just trying to buy up everything and mow it down, including your grandmother's cafe. And you're basically befriending the townspeople to make a stand against it. And it has like a cute little, humble little ending where they go, okay, well, we'll just back off, which is not very realistic. But again, it was cozy. I like the vibes of, you know, don't mess with like old stuff, history and stuff like that. Don't just tear things down to put ugly ass fucking apartments on it. Like, that's basically the theme of it. Super cute. I love the cats because you get like normal bonguses like this, and then you get like an alien. There's like a 3-eyed little idiot that you can get. There's a couple other wild ones that I like that you get once you get like the different types of food, because you get some weird food to attract the little weird ones. But you can name them. I chose not to name them because their names were great to begin with. But all the characters are super cute, and they all have like their own little like arcs as you're befriending them. And even some of them were more difficult to befriend at the beginning because they're just, some people have the walls. But I definitely recommend it if you want to. It's probably like an 8-hour game. It was quite enjoyable. I liked it a lot, and I would recommend it. Very cozy.
At least that one is like finished and not still like an early access and stuff like that.
Yes,
right?
it is a complete game, unlike the one that I spent in the summer, but that's okay because it's almost complete. The next update will be complete.
Yeah.
Which I will talk about because I poured a lot of time in.
So the next one for me, everybody should know about from the video, the main video on the channel. Darkspark, which I did the video on, so I had to obviously play it for the video. And this is one of the games that I did not play when it was new. So most of the Transformers games that I did for the retrospective, the Armada game, the first movie game, the second movie game, War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, I all played when they were new, and I played the dog shit out of them, as you might expect. So for some of the other ones, having to play them for the first time, particularly this one, to play for the first time with the video was not as enjoyable because you're kind of forcing yourself to think about every experience in the game through the lens of how am I going to write this into the video kind of thing. And I always think that's a very negative way to experience a game. And one of the reasons why content creation can ruin otherwise good experiences for you, and you should not do it that way. Talk about things you're already passionate about. Don't retroactively develop a passion just to make a video. Regardless of the reasons why I played this, it still is not very good because this is a pseudo tie-in to Age of Extinction, the 4th live-action movie, and a pseudo third game in the War for Cybertron trilogy. And it's not very good at doing either of those things. It was slapdash together by a studio, a know-nothing studio that has not accomplished anything. The only thing the Edge of Reality has done that was any good is they did the console ports for Dragon Age Origins and Mass Effect on the PS3, and that's it. The rest of the games they made were shovelware, and this is no exception. It just wasn't very good. I talked about that in the video, and the video was a lot harder to make and a lot more difficult to get through as a creative process than the Devastation one was, because it just wasn't fun to talk about. It wasn't fun to write about, and it was just, I knew it was going to be going in because I knew a lot of what the game's reception was, but that didn't mean I went in with an explicitly negative attitude, because it does have like the bones there of a good game. It's very much the same skeleton as Fall of Cybertron, but just it feels like, you know how you'll get those Steam early access or green light like asset flip type of games where you'll get either like a Unity asset flip or a Game Guru asset flip or even like a CryEngine asset flip. This feels like an asset flip made with all of Fall of Cybertron's assets is what it feels like. It's very hard to describe, but that's the best way I can describe how it feels to play it.
It was a chore.
Next is the next game night game, and this is, we went back through Tales of Arise again, and of course this was my favorite game that I beat for the first time in 2024. And I talked about it in last year's video, so I've already talked about this game enough, but this was your first experience with it, if you want to talk about it.
I do. So I was not controlling it. Our friend was controlling it. I did play a little bit after to get a feel of it, but I do want to do my own playthrough to enjoy the way it plays. So I'm going to be speaking mostly on like a character sense and story sense. I have to say, I love Alphen. It is so refreshing to have, one, an older protag, but also a more emotionally mature protag with not that many hangups, really. Like, he has his moment in, like, the midsection of the story.
Like the two-thirds part of the story, yeah.
Right, which was completely justifiable, in my opinion, because if you found out what he found out, I think I would have a magical meltdown as well. Between that, of the revelation of who he was, plus his girlfriend being taken, he was just not having a good time, TM. But our other protag, they're all protags, but like Xion is probably like one of my favorite characters of like all time. Like, I love her very, very much, and her story is so compelling and heartbreaking, and when you find the truth about her and what makes her
so standoffish.
Yeah. What makes her the way she is at the beginning, and, cause like, you know from the get-go she can't touch anyone. You know, it's a curse. But to find out that she so desperately wants those connections and wants to be able to, it's so heartbreaking. But I love both of them, and the other characters I also enjoy. I like the variety of, like, ages and life stories everybody has. Like, you have the youngest Rinwell, which is like 15 or 16, to...
Is she younger or older than Law?
She is younger than Law.
Okay, yes, she is youngest then.
So I think she's like 14, 15, 16, one of those, and he's like 16
a year
or
older
17.
than her,
yeah. Like he's somewhere, they're close in age, but she's technically the youngest, which is funny to think, but because she is technically more mature than Law in some cases.
Many such cases when it comes to teenage boys and girls.
Yes. And then you have like Dolahim and Kasara being the oldest, which I think Dolahim is older than her.
He's 28, she's 25.
Yeah, so it is nice to see the variety of ages and like the different life experiences all of them have. All of them being hard in their own ways, and all having like things that they have to overcome to be this absolute unit, this little found family, which found family kind of stories do warm my heart quite a bit. I know you, like, the major twist at the end for you is not your favorite part. I thought it was fine. Because when I realized what was happening, I did cackle and I was like, oh my god. Because I like a little spoiler, I'm just going to say, oh my god, it's aliens. Oh my god! Like, that's all I'm going to say that would classify as spoilers. But when that happened, I thought it was so funny. But I can see why that part is like, you feel like the story falls off a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
But it's worth it for that last moment of me crying, and
Yeah.
I love Alpha's shield so much.
I guess you can set that over there because we're playing the expansion right now, so it's not gonna get packed away with the rest of the.
Yes.
I gotta do something about this pretty soon. Like this is a ever encroaching problem I'm gonna need to address very soon.
Is it that window?
Yeah.
I do want to get like blinds for those windows.
This is gonna be an audio only video pretty soon. Anyway, so I played a sort of indie game based off of a popular movie franchise. So I played and beat Terminator Resistance on the PS4. Look at that glare. Look at that huge glare.
Wow.
And
there we go.
This is a... I love this description, by the way. So it is a first-person shooter that has like some slight open world and like survival and crafting elements. And so when people say that, they're like, oh, is it supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic like Fallout-like? No. Is it an immersive sim? No. It is, and only a few people watching are going to get this, it is a Rage-like. In the sense that there is like item crafting and a little bit of exploration and like some basic NPC dialogue and stuff like that set in a post-apocalyptic setting, but it is not as in-depth as a Fallout game or an immersive sim. But very cool game. So obviously I'm a big fan of the Terminator movie series, mainly 1 and 2, as most people are, because those are the good ones. But the future war stuff, where the machines have won and the last remnants of humanity are fighting back against the machines, is always like one of the most provocative pieces of imagery those movies have, and it's rarely been tapped into and explored in a meaningful way, because we got like the 4th movie with Christian Bale, Terminator Salvation, that like didn't really live up to the visual style of what we saw in the 1st and 2nd movie with what that looked like, because that's always like a tiny snippet of those movies. And but they nailed it. They nailed the atmosphere, they nailed the visual design, the sound design. And so you kind of start out in this game as just like one of these human resistance fighters fighting against the machines, and you'll see these little scout robots that they'll send flying around, and they're pretty easy to shoot down with just like regular guns. And then when you see an actual Terminator show up, you're like, oh no, I'm fucked. I need to go right now, because none of your guns do anything against them. And I love the first time they show up too, it's dark out. And so you can like hear their footsteps, and you can see just the red eyes in the dark. And you know that there is jack shit you can do to fight them. And it is so awesome the way they nailed the atmosphere for that. And so most of the middle part of the game, when you fight an actual Terminator, you're running from them until you actually get like plasma-based weapons, and then you can kind of fight like 1 or 2 of them at a time without dying. But eventually you get enough upgrades, and you go through the story, and you get like, you know, health upgrades, and you craft better med kits, and you craft explosives, and you craft plasma weapons. And the gradual progression of this game ends up with the final set piece, where you're going to go shut down like a local like Skynet server facility or whatever that controls a bunch of machines. And it's you with a plasma minigun just mowing down Terminators like without any resistance, and like the juxtaposition of like, oh my god, there's one of them, I have to run or I'm gonna die, to I'm gonna mow down a whole army of them is so awesome. And again, it like really captures the movies. It's so faithful to the best parts of those movies, and without using any of the actors, like no Arnold Schwarzenegger, None of those people are, none of their likenesses are depicted. I think that's probably for money saving reasons and for rights reasons. It gets to be its own thing while kind of sort of tying into the movie story in kind of an unremarkable way. I also did kind of like the sort of humbleness of how much they tried with the story and the characters, because this is a low budget game clearly. But it feels so sincere. It's like they tried to make this like story driven game with character dialogue and everything. And even though it's like not done particularly well, it just feels so sincere, and I can't hate on it for that. It's probably objectively like a 5 or 6 out of 10 kind of game, but as a game based off the Terminator IP, it's like a 9. It's like the best, the most faithful fan service you could possibly get to that franchise. And from a developer that prior to this game did not have a good track record, because I think prior to this they made a game based off the Rambo movies. It was a rail shooter on the Xbox 360 or something like that, and it was terrible. Everybody hated it. And I think they're the same developers that went on to the next like 80s movie game that they made is the RoboCop one, the RoboCop Rogue City. And that game has an even better reception than this one does. So it seems like they're only getting better and better with every movie license they choose to adapt. And
we love to see that.
yeah, so it is. It is a. I definitely recommend it if you want to try an earnest effort by a small developer, and you are a fan of the Terminator brand. If you're just looking for like an objectively good like first-person survival RPG shooter type of game, probably not that much of a recommendation, because those elements are just very shallow and not very well explored.
My next game is technically one that is not fully out. They did an update in July, and so when we took our break after cosplay in June and July and August, I played the hell out of Fields of Mystria, which is a farming sim, which handles everything that I like in a farming sim very well. And I know I've talked about this before, where I like when there is a goal, storyline goal, like there's stuff going on, but also the farming stuff is important. First of all, it's in like this pixel 90s style anime, and the characters are all really charming. It does, you can, whatever pronouns you want, have them. Whoever you want to marry, because marriage isn't an option. If you want to date anyone, doesn't matter. I think they handle that very well. The character customizing is fine. It's not like super expansive, but it's nice. I like the progression of the seasons. Again, at the end of the day, I really enjoy the quality of life stuff that they have for the farming sims. The updates are very responsive to what people want. There is still like an element of combat in this game that is not, it's not like overextensive, but it is fun. I look forward to seeing how they wrap up the story with the new update, because the update that I think there's 2 this year, or there's 1, and it's the final update where you get everything complete. Game is officially done this year, which is exciting. But it hit like the right spot for me, and I binged the hell out of it. I clocked out of work going, I can't wait to play this game. I want to talk to my villagers. I want to romance my stupid dragon boyfriend. The dating element is fun because it doesn't punish you for dating multiple people. There's no jealousy thing, which is nice because all of them are great, man. Like, there's like a list. all of them are good. They have something for everybody, and it's nice. I also like the attention to detail, like outfit changes in the seasons, which I know some do. I don't know. I just enjoyed it. It hit the right spot for what I needed at that moment, and I highly, highly recommend it for anyone, especially since I can't believe that it's not a full game now. Like I spent $11 on it, and it feels like a full game, even without marriage in the completion part, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, and I guess the my big takeaway from you talking about this game, and so multiple of our friends have said that this, and you're historically a big fan of the farming simulator style games, but particularly the Harvest Moon Story of Seasons series. And even though that series went through the weird schism of the rights issue to where the original developers started making the new Story of Seasons remake games on the Switch, and the Harvest Moon name continued on in a different branch that was not as good because it was different developers. We have multiple friends that have said that this game, Fields of Mystria, just blows the pants off of the modern, even the better of the Story of Seasons games as well. That just the developers of this game clearly get it. Like, they are clearly big fans of this subgenre.
Yes.
And they know what makes a good farming sim game and what doesn't, and they've included so many elements in there that are kind of just like once you go this direction you can never go back kind of thing. And that's crazy to think about, but I'm not surprised that is the case from an indie dev, because that's pretty much just the state of the game industry right now. Like, if you like a particular subgenre and you're unsatisfied with its representation in the mainstream, just wait, and some indie developer will make literally the perfect game for you.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that is it's going to be the same case for me with immersive sims, because I've pretty much given up on a new AAA immersive sim, and I think that games like Fallen Aces is a game on Steam that's in early access that's an immersive sim, are going to be the way in which that subgenre course corrects, and so that's what that made me think of with Fields of Mystria.
Yeah, because my favorite Harvest Moon title that was before the split is Animal Parade, and that's because there was a main story goal to work towards. Like, you were trying to save the Harvest Goddess and save the town. I've said this about the Story of Seasons games that I've played and I've talked about in our year-end videos. It's taken something of the magic out by having to split and not have the Harvest Goddess, because from what I understand, Harvest Goddess stays with Harvest Moon. Story of Seasons can't have the Harvest Goddess. However way they decided to do that, so I feel like the Story of Seasons lost that magic, and I feel like I'm just playing a game that goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily like that. I think the credits roll when you get married in Pioneers of Olive Town, don't quote me. But I don't want marriage to be the end, because that wouldn't have been the end for Animal Parade.
Yeah. It's also worth mentioning that you have never caught the Stardew bug, where there's people we know that Stardew Valley is a second job for them, and you are just not that way, where I think you've resisted the temptation to play this game that effectively becomes a second job, right?
Yes, and I've also heard where people have talked about playing Stardew, it's better with mods. If you have, I'm gonna sound really shit, mod should be a enhancement, not the way that you have to play the game. If you're going, oh, it's better if you play it with mods, I don't really like that. I don't always want to play a game with a mod. I should be able to boot up the game and play it as is and enjoy it.
Yeah, you should at least be able to appreciate what the mod adds, and the vanilla game should still be able to hold up on its own, because at that point,
Correct.
You are like fixing the game for the devs, and by including things that they chose not to include or adding quality of life things that they never considered.
Yeah, and so like I won't say my curiosity is not there. It's just there's just stuff that I'm not that interested in that game has, and I don't particularly wish to interact with that. Versus how much I enjoyed Mystria and how it scratched the itch of everything I want in a farming sim.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I love pixel art. I'm going to support any game that does pixel art. I'm not going to lie. Bring back pixel art in games, please.
Yeah. So the next thing that, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Come on.
Just thinking about it. Aster, I hope you're comfy.
Yeah, so the next two games for me were on the same collection. So I decided towards the end of the summer, because I couldn't figure out what to play. Whenever I cannot figure out what to play, I always resort back to the original Doom. So if this glare is just insane.
Oh no, it's hitting me too.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter at this point. So I wanted to at some point commit to a full series run of the original Doom, and by full series I mean pretty much everything that's included. Nope. Included on the modern collections. So that would be Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 2 Master Levels, Final Doom, which is 2 different parts. What is that Doom 2 expansion? No Rest for the Living, and then Sigil 2, etc. And then finally the newest official expansion that came out as with the current port of Doom, which is called Legacy of Rust. And I wanted to do a full playthrough of all of those, every commercially released official Doom level, because I hadn't done a playthrough like that. I had started new playthroughs on so many different versions because I have it on every single system, including, like, I've got it on, there's like the PS3 complete classic version, and then there's the Unity port that I have on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch here. And then they ported the Unity version to the Kex engine, which is what a lot of the classic shooter re-releases are based on now. So that's like the current most modern port of the game. Runs great, looks great, has all the commercially released levels, and I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do as far as that playthrough went, if I wanted to stream it or make it some part of some larger project or whatever. But I was like, I'm just going to play it and just play like I would any other game, a casual run, be immersed in the moment-to-moment gameplay and not try to prop it up as part of some other project and just have fun with it. And I played all the way through, so far, just Doom 1 and Doom 2 on Ultraviolence. And I've started Master Levels, and we'll see how long it takes me to get through that. But I definitely think just with those two, that Doom 1's levels, I think I'm always going to slightly prefer, because Doom 1 and 2 share the same engine, more or less. It's a very similar sequel situation as like Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, or Mario NES to Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, what would have been Lost Levels kind of thing, where it's like literally the exact same engine, same graphics, same everything, same controls, but just with 1 or 2 new added features kind of thing. And with Doom 2, it was new monsters and 1 new weapon, and that was it. And that was an acceptable sequel back in 1994. But it is just so much more intense. Like, the levels in Doom 2 are so much more overstimulating. There's so many more enemies, and there's very little room to breathe. And I feel like Doom 1's levels are a lot more balanced in that regard. And so playing on Ultraviolence especially, like, Doom 1 has a nice pace to it, whereas Doom 2 and a lot of Doom 2's expansions just are exhausting sometimes with how overstimulating they are. And it's very much the same way I feel about Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal by extension, is that exact same sequel relationship. But on this run, especially with Doom 2, I wanted to write about this and make a blog about it. I should have done that while I was doing this, but I wanted to almost like write down my feelings about each individual level one at a time on the blog and like really remember them in detail, but I didn't do that. But Doom 2, I feel like hits a point where you are close to the end and there's like 3 to 5 more levels left and the game should be ending, but the last like 3 to 5 levels are like joke levels that are not particularly fun. So I think of Monster Condo and Barrels of Fun, where these are supposed to be like fun joke levels before the penultimate level and the actual final level. And their placement in the game, especially playing on a hard difficulty, is really frustrating. And I remember, again, Barrels of Fun is this level where it's a giant long corridor full of the exploding barrels, and you're like, oh, if I shoot one of these, it's going to cause a massive chain reaction that blows up everything, including me. And that is basically the level. Like, it expands onward from that a little bit, but that level's a pain in the ass on Ultraviolets. Like, it's really annoying how the gimmicks work in some of those levels, and so that is a really weird thing about Doom 2 that I almost feel like that was... There's just something weird happened pacing-wise there, and I'm curious as to who decided on that map order or who those levels that I just mentioned were designed by, if it was Romero or who it was, where you have what feels like should be a complete campaign, and then those couple levels just sandwiched right in there before the end to be like, here's some funny things we thought up before you finish the game. Here's some goofy haha joke levels before we end, and that kind of, I wouldn't say it's a mark against the game, but it's just interesting the way that they decided to pace it like that. But yeah, I do. Obviously, I love classic Doom. It's the ultimate pick up and play game for me, where if I just need that little bit of mental stimulation or to take out some frustration, classic Doom is a great way to do it because the gameplay is so much instant gratification, and the fact that there's literally hundreds of commercially released levels and even more, like an infinite number of fan-made levels with WADs and stuff like that released over the more than 30 years that the game has been out. It's always going to be a content-rich experience no matter in what form you're playing it in. So
this is my final game of the year, which is not... I did not play that many games this year. I'll be honest with you. Looking at my Steam recap, it was kind of funny. It was like, whoop, yeah, whoop, and then back and doing nothing. I think there was like an actual month where I went to sit down to play games, and I'm like, I just don't feel like it. But my final game of 2025, to no one's surprise, is Pokemon Legends ZA, the ZA. Now, I will say I upheld my decision when I talked about Scarlet and Violet of I'm not buying a Pokemon game on release. This is a copy that I am borrowing from a friend. I have not bought this game. I probably will go and buy it. So this is the Switch 1 version. I could not tell you what the Switch 2 version difference are. I've watched people play it. I played the first game, like the Switch 1 version. It looks the damn same. Yeah, I'm not the person to...
Literally, the only difference is frame rate.
Yeah.
The Switch 2 version runs at 60 FPS, and that's the only difference. Only difference.
And I will say, overall quality of this, completely fine. I have not ran into any glitches. Overall looks fine. I know people had some concerns with, like, the buildings not being super detailed. I'm not the person for that. I don't give a fuck if there's not, like, actual, like, detail, 3D detail on a building that I am scaling up just to fuck around on top of it. I don't care. I'm not that person. If people are gonna be like, what do you do, like Arceus or ZA more, I'm always gonna say Arceus on the count that it's a Sinnoh. It's in Sinnoh. I'm biased. Arceus is always gonna be my favorite because it's based in Sinnoh and it has literally all my favorite Pokemon. But what I liked about ZA I like the characters. I like the story. I also can talk about the DLC because I also played it. So, I like all of the different characters, and I like how, because there's not gym leaders, they coordinate the specialty characters, like the ones that are like poison type, fighting type, whatnot. In the ZA Royale, there's multiple groups of people that are influential in the city, like the Rust Syndicate being Steel Poison, I think is very clever, as well as the Justice guys, Fist of Justice guys being Ghost fighting, and then, of course, however the hell you say, Jacinth and LeBane's group being Fairy Dragon. I think it's very clever how they handled that. Oh, my bad. The Dynamos, Canary and her grandfather being Ground and Electric. It's clearly intentional. I like it a lot because when you encounter members of those groups, I don't really know who's going to throw out who. And sometimes they have a very good, sometimes they have a mix. Sometimes I get hit with a fucking Stunfisk. And I'm like, where's my grass move? Because you can't use water to fight the ground because you're gonna get electrocuted. My poor Feraligatr has learned the hard way. My bad. But I like the characters a lot. The story overall is fine. I cried like a baby at the end. So I played as a guy, so my rival is Tawny. I like her a lot as a rival. My only beef is that how she handled the end. I won. I'm the best trainer in Lumia City, and she definitely handled that like a sore loser. But I did overall enjoy the storyline of the helping AZ deal with his remorse, and then having him have like that final piece of I finally cleaned up all the terrible shit I did when I was miserable and hateful and ugly to the world. And the final fight with Zygarde is cool as shit. I wished it was voice acted because it was really freaking cool. Like, your character like climbs on the like railing fence, stands like on top of this building on the railing thing, and I wish you could just like scream that final move as he does it. So freaking cool. And then like, so I'll talk about what I don't like about ZA, and then I'll talk about the DLC. The game does not do turn-based. Like Arceus does. So when you enter a battle with Pokemon, it does not go into like a turn-based thing. Like it is a free-for-all. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't like have 20 billion idiots attacking me because there's no like, if there's strategy to that, I don't get it. I'm dumb. Like how am I supposed to have a strategy when I have like 6 stupid assholes hitting me from all angles? There's nothing like interesting for that.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people have shared that same complaint where when you completely remove the ability, like what you're basically doing is you're basically making it to where any thought process behind like a Pokemon's speed that people have methodically like thought about for generations now no longer matters.
I mean, speed matters.
But with the clock running in, like, the time between your inputs and when you can get hit again is irrelevant. Mm. It's almost like if you were playing the Final Fantasy games where they have ATB, but there was no ability, there was, like, no input buffer, and every attack was just go, go, go. And, I don't know, I just don't see how that makes any sense with Pokemon at all. It just seems like you said you're going to get cheap shot from a million different directions, and as soon as there is a fight that is your one ally against multiple enemies that it loses all cohesion.
Yeah, but that being said, I enjoy the one-on-one battles a lot. Those are really good. And I enjoyed like the big arena when you're fighting the rogue mega evolutions. That's a lot of fun, and the music slaps. But also, with that being said, there are certain elements of disbelief, like everyone knows Area 17 sucks ass because of the Pyroars. And truthfully, I wouldn't have that much grievance about it if I could climb up the roof and escape them. The fact that they can still use earth power when you're on top of the roof is bullshit. That just doesn't make any sense on why they can hit you from there like that. I don't like it. That's my least favorite part about it. We were talking about this last night, I think, but there is no riding Pokemon, and I didn't really register it that much, because you don't technically need them that much. But man, trying to find a way to get on top of buildings sometimes pisses me off. I don't always want to do the scaffolding thing because sometimes I just don't want to do a puzzle to get all the way. I want to get up to the roof. I'm trying to do something and I want to figure it the fuck out. Just let me get on the damn roof. That would be resolved if I had a bird that would just shoot me up from the up to the top. Like, it irritates the crap out of me trying to get onto buildings, and that's like a nitpick. I think this is a game that announced its DLC before the game was released, which is not my favorite thing. I wish companies would not do that. Please just do it in a separate announcement. It drives me batshit. This game came out in November. There was no reason, like, a couple days later you couldn't have announced the DLC. You did it for Donkey Kong. You could have done it for this game. But this game was literally not out when they didn't announce DLC, and that does drive me insane. That being said, DLC, really fun. You meet Ansha, which is just this cute little girl, and you make donuts instead of sandwiches, and you're not even responsible for making the sandwiches, and they're pretty and not abominations without the top bun. Like,
right.
It is so nice not to have to make sandwiches and still, like, not have to do the stupid ingredients thing. And I like that you can skip through Ansha making things instead of having to live through the cutscene of you cringely eating that sandwich. So I do like her. The hyperdimension part is very fascinating. I always like... Hoopa is such a mischievous... He is the mischief Pokemon. And I just enjoy the mischief and the chaos of it. Like, the hyperdimensions are just fucking bizarre. You don't know what's reality, what's a dream, and what's what. And, after you beat the main, like, storyline, finishing up, like, Ansha's storyline was very sweet. Because she wants to get Rayquaza for her mom. And you do end up getting Rayquaza, but she decided that the reward is telling her mom the stories, which is super cute. But my negatives of the DLC is that there is multiple times where you're fighting two super powerful mega evolutions at the same time. What the fuck, man? Like, I just don't like fighting two things. Like, if I could have an actual double battle, which is one of my favorite things, I would feel better about it. But I don't.
Yeah, just, like, no regard for balance whatsoever.
No, like, I mean, I thought it was funny when I was watching the Crabominals fighting. I was like, look at these idiots fighting. And then they look at me and I have both of them. I had to leave. And there's another double battle where the two Pokemon Mega Evolution and you're fighting them that I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. The Raichus were the only easy one so far. Like, I got done the first try and then I was like, cool. Ooh, I don't really like that, but Very good game for shiny hunting, I think. I feel like the odds are much better. Hyperspace makes them very interesting to shiny hunt because obviously you can get shiny power donuts, which is random. There's a billion tutorials online. Again, Austin John Plays has some of the best videos about doing that, but I have had a great time shiny hunting, which is one of my favorite things to do. And also, I was smart and I did not do the 1,000 battles. I waited till the DLC and I got rewarded for my laziness. Yeah.
But since you're done with games, I'm just going to do a lightning round and talk about the last four because they were all kind of played on the same console for the same reason. So I had the Xbox One hooked up to my recording setup because I was getting footage for Transformers Devastation for that video. And I did not do the thing I said I was going to do in the video and randomly switch which console the footage came from. That was just a bit. That was just a joke. If you were looking for that in the footage, I'm sorry, you're wasting your time. It all came from the Xbox One version. I did not use any PS4 or 360 footage.
And now you'll only know if you watch this video.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes there for you. But so I recorded the whole game on the Xbox One version, and while I had it hooked up, because normally towards the end of the year, if I'm not doing anything else, I like to clean up a lot of my backlog and try to get some shorter games completed while I can, like what's left of the year. And that's what I did, but I had to stop because I was trying to get that video done. So I didn't do as many games in that category as I could have because I was trying to work on the video. But I did complete 4 more games while I had the Xbox One hooked up, and some of them were backwards compatible games from the original Xbox. And the first one with the fake DVD case with the printed label from good old Play and Trade back in the day is Time Splitters 2, which was I think Xbox and PS2 and maybe also GameCube era first-person shooter. So the Time Splitters series is this weird spiritual successor to the type of shooter that GoldenEye and Perfect Dark were. So it is what I will charitably call a GoldenEye-like, where it is a type of first-person shooter where, depending on which difficulty mode you're playing on, will depend on how many objectives you need to complete to finish a level. And the first Time Splitters was very much this like sort of arcade-style game on the PS2, where it was one of the PS2 launch titles, if I'm not mistaken, where it's supposed to be these people like traveling through time to stop these like time traveling, dimension hopping aliens from erasing all of history or something like that. And so every level was a different time period, and so you would have like super sci-fi future with laser guns and stuff like that, and you would have like Old West cowboys, then you would have modern military and stuff like that, and the game had a fun multiplayer mechanic. But the original Time Splitters, the single player mode could probably be finished in about an hour and a half, and it was very much just a simple thing of like you drop into a level, you complete the objective, you find the time portal, and you leave. And it was fun for what it was, but it was not a very content rich game. Time Splitters 2 took that premise and gave it more of an actual story and fleshed it out quite a bit. And so I was really looking forward to playing this. And the first level of it is very, very promising, where you have... It very much feels like a Lost level from GoldenEye or Perfect Dark, where it's like a base that is built out of a dam and you're infiltrating, and it's like, oh, plant this bug on this computer, blow up this satellite dish, and do all this other cool espionage stuff, shoot these security cameras before you get to the end. And I was really looking forward to that. But the rest of the game does not quite live up to that initial premise. It is much closer to the first Time Splitters, but with a story, than it is to Perfect Dark. And again, that does vary depending on what difficulty you're playing as, but the variety of settings and scenarios you're in is much more interesting than the different mission objectives. So there was definitely some really cool highlights in here. There is Old West Cowboys section, there is a 1930s gangster story in there where you're like, you know, in suits with jazz music and Tommy guns and stuff like that. That was cool.
Love that.
There is a gothic horror Notre Dame sequence, which is cool, where you are in you're in the actual Notre Dame Cathedral with like vampires and shit running around, and they literally have like fucking Quasimodo himself come out like dual wielding machine guns, and it's really funny.
That's insane.
And so there's definitely some very, very memorable levels in this game, but their attempt to give it a story was pretty underbaked. It's humble for its time period, but it's not like a super in-depth story. And basically it's just like you're going to all these different time periods trying to find these time crystals, and then you get back to the future and you're trying to escape the time splitters before they destroy your time travel facility. And so it kind of has a bleak, like, bad end, which somewhat ties into the third game, but we'll get to that. And so it's fine for what it is. I did have fun with it. I know why this series is well beloved by some people. This is also the ultimate clickbait franchise in terms of when the completely washed up clickbait gaming news outlets on social media want to bait you. They will say, rumor, new Time Splitters reboot has been announced or whatever, and it's like the ultimate. It's been a reoccurring clickbait thing for years. And I swear, I kid you not, I'm pretty sure I have screenshots going back to like 2017, 2018 of gaming news sites and social media pages trying to engagement bait about a fake Time Splitters rumor. It's really funny how much they love doing that. But ironically, the series actually finally did get a continuation this year with like a fan-made remake of the first game. So it's still not the thing that we got clickbaited about all those years ago when they were saying that there was going to be a Time Splitters 4. It was more of here is a fan-made remaster of the original, and I think we saw like Vinny play that and stuff like that, but I don't know much about it. But yeah, this was fun. It was a nice little short afternoon killer on the original Xbox. Again, fake case for this, and it runs great backwards compatible on the Xbox One. There's actually I think that game and the third game have a loading screen with like a splash screen artwork on it. And you barely get to see it because the loading screen goes so fast that you see it appear and then disappear immediately because the load times are so much quicker. Next, we have the reason why the Xbox was hooked up in the first place. So if Unicorn Overlord was the objectively like the best new game that I beat for the first time this year, this was the most fun I had playing a game this year, as I said in the video. You just recently watched the video, so you already know pretty much everything I have to say about this. Transformers Devastation was the most fun I had playing a game this year. It was so much fun. I was like screaming and yelling at the screen because almost every single boss fight in this game was like a clutch victory where I had like a single hit of health left and like just cheesed at the very last second and got in that win. And that is one of the most fun ways, in my opinion, to play a game like this is to almost not even know how close or far you were from victory, if that makes any sense. Because like all games in this genre, the sort of Platinum Games, character action game subgenre, there is probably tons of room for optimization and, playing optimally. But when you are just doing it on raw reflexes, I think it is more fun because you are not cheapening the enjoyment of your experience by realizing how much harder it could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I have no interest in playing this on like the max difficulty or anything like that. I'm not a tryhard like that. And but it was awesome. I loved it, and it was the best video that I made in a long time. The next one so just again trying to thin out games on the Xbox. So I had the 20. This game is a decade old now too. It's so crazy. The 2016 entry in the Call of Duty series, Infinite Warfare. So the reason I even own this is I remember people saying that it is better than you would think it would be, and that it is the only game in the series to have a sci-fi setting quite like this. They never did the whole like space sci-fi thing after this because I think they realized they were going too over the top and tried to dial it back down to more realistic settings. I guess.
I guess I didn't even know there was a sci-fi one.
Yeah, this one takes place in space.
Okay.
And I did have fun with it, but obviously it still has all the problems with these like extremely mainstream, extremely paint by numbers, extremely formulaic spectacle shooters where it is like, it's crazy to think that the next most recent game in the series I would have played prior to this one, not in terms of like when I played it, but in terms of release order. The next newest Call of Duty to this one that I played was 2010's Black Ops 1, the first Black Ops from 2010. And 6 years later, the games still play almost exactly the same. Even though there's a ton of like cool sci-fi stuff they've added to this game, like one of the offhand weapons is a little spider robot that goes and crawls up and finds enemies behind cover and locks onto them and stuff like that, which is cool. But one of the things, and it's really funny because Dan Olsen made that Call of Duty Ghosts video, which was a panel he did at PAX or something like that. And he points out the fact that whenever a new Call of Duty comes out, and I think a lot of people who are bigger fans of the series know this intuitively, where a new game will come out, it'll be exactly the same as the previous game, but it will have a gimmick. The gimmick of Ghost was the dog thing, and the gimmick of this is like space battles. And it is really funny that this game came out the same year as Titanfall 2, which was made by some of the original Call of Duty developers, one of which, a major name of which passed away this year as well. And yet Titanfall 2 actually just feels so much more original, so much more unique, so much more engaging. It actually feels like a different kind of game, whereas this feels exactly the same as the older Call of Duty games, and I was not surprised by that in the slightest. But I paid $20 for this back in like 2020 or 2021, and I definitely think I got my money's worth out of it because, again, it was pretty short. I didn't engage with a lot of the side missions or anything like that. I pretty much played straight down the middle of the main campaign. And it did have some cool moments. There's a moment where you are on the Saturn's moon of Titan, which is a moon that we consider to be potentially habitable given the right technology, and it looks cool. Like it has this like yellowish hue to it, and it just looks really, really cool. There's a mission on this base on, I think it's Mercury or Venus, that's like really close to the sun, where the planet is spinning so quickly that you will be in like the line of sight of the intense sun rays really quickly. So like there's a point where the sun is passing over you and anything in the sunlight gets fried basically, so you have to wait for the sun to pass so you can keep moving, and it's really cool. There's another cool set piece like that too. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think there's one where you're like on the surface of Neptune or something like that. Like there's some cool sci-fi like set pieces in there, but it's very much just like the rest of the series, kind of a one and done kind of thing. Very much just there for spectacle and not a whole lot else. And even the story I thought was okay. It has this very surprising, very bittersweet, somber tone to it. Spoilers. Every character you play as dies. All of them, including your named player character. There's like one of your squad mates is just a robot who has like the I guess the Iron Giant syndrome of charismatic robot buddy that you know is going to die kind of thing. And so you like him just enough to get attached to him, and you know the game's going to kill him off kind of thing.
That's rude.
But kind of a memorable character. Kind of like what they did with him. And Yeah, like when I beat the final mission, the credits are rolling. There's this to give you really like an idea of like a pulse check of the way that this franchise's fan base interacts with it, and how so many elements of the campaigns go underappreciated by the actual people that play them. There's a thing in the credits of this game where there's like the credits are rolling, and there's the characters' portraits off to the side, and you can press one of the face buttons to listen to basically a audio recording that is the final wishes of that character before they go on the suicide mission and die. And it's like kind of heartbreaking because you're like, this character is like, all right, this message is, if you're hearing this message, I guess I didn't make it, so this is to my family, you know, I love my family and everything. And it's like, wow, that's actually like a sincere amount of effort they put into that. And you get an achievement for listening to those, and the percentage of people who have actually listened to them is shockingly small.
Oh.
Because I'm like, the juxtaposition of the trophy you get for beating the game versus the trophy for listening to those tells me that a vast majority of the player base of these games do not care for sincere like attempts at an emotionally deep like story like that. And so the series just gave up after a while. I don't blame them if that's the way their player base is going to engage with it. But the last thing I'll mention about this is the credits are rolling, and I see the supporting teams that helped to develop this game, obviously. And I see High Moon Studios go by, and I see Raven Software go by, and I just cannot tell you what a gut punch that is to see these very talented studios. Again, High Moon Studios are the ones that made like the really good Transformers games I talked about in the retrospective, and Raven are the ones that made a lot of really cool games on the on id Software's engines. So like the Star Wars Jedi Outcast and like Quake 4 and stuff like that. And those studios are not allowed to make good games anymore. All they do is crunch and make side content for Call of Duty, and that's all they do anymore. And that's just because of Activision and their bullshit. And so it's like this tragic fate of like, if you're a competent studio that makes good games and you don't do extremely well, but you're owned by Activision, you will just get absorbed into what we call the Call of Duty mines. I think even the former Guitar Hero devs are there. The former Tony Hawk Pro Skater devs are there. Like anybody just that used to have a successful studio, those studios just get absorbed into the gross conglomerate that is start working on your COD game now and hope it'll be out. And when the cycle eventually comes, the like year-to-year cycle gets around to you. So, you know, like I said, I'm like watching the credits roll by, and I'm kind of enjoying like their sincere attempt at an emotional story arc with the characters' last wishes and everything. And then I see High Moon Studios and Raven Software go by, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, Activision. I hate this. I really just, yeah, I hate it. And that's nothing to say about how the games industry is to this day, because good Lord has Activision Blizzard been the subject of a lot of very justified scrutiny in recent years. Mm-hmm. On to the final game, and that is I beat this 2 days ago on the 30th. And so I just finished the Transformers Civilization video, and I was like, do I have time to finish one more game? And I did. And I squeezed this in right at the last minute. So, and it was Time Splitters 3, Future Perfect, which does have its original case and its original manual. And so, same premise as the second game that I mentioned, but this one has much more of a story. And so, when you time travel in this game, you have like side characters to actually talk to and bounce off of, and usually you will spend 2 missions in the same time period instead of 1 in most cases in this game. And they do this gimmick where it has this really fun like cartoony art style, and the animations are really smooth for that era. I think it's a really good way of like working with technological limitations, because when you look at the cutscenes, very similar to like we were talking about with Ratchet and Clank with the first video we did, where the characters move like this really smooth kind of way in the cutscenes, and it has so much more personality than something that's trying to be like true to life. You know what I mean? So much more preferable to something that's trying to be hyper realistic.
I'm looking at the manual because I love the fact that old games
it has
have
one.
manuals.
Yeah. So the gimmick in this game is sort of that the character you're playing as will find like a wormhole and go and help himself in these levels. And so the first time this happens, you see a time rift or a wormhole or something, and you go through it, and you end up earlier in the same level to where you can then help out the past version of yourself with a part of the level. And they do this in a lot of really creative ways. The most impressive one, which I couldn't believe they did for the era, is there is a part where you're in like some sci-fi tech base or whatever, and there's like a computer you need to punch in a passcode for, and it's like a hacking mini game a la Immersive Sims. And two people need to input the password simultaneously, and so that automatically means you need two copies of yourself. But when you start messing with the computer, it's like, okay, unauthorized access, we're going to have a bunch of gun turrets shooting at you, and a bunch of enemies are going to start pouring in. So you are dealing with 4 copies of the same character all in the same room, tag teaming this challenge together. And it is so cool and so stressful at the same time, because the first iteration of you is like, okay, I'm at computer A doing the mini game, and the rest of them are all running around shooting, and then it's like, okay, now I'm coming out, now I have to protect I'm character B, now I have to protect character A, then I'm going to go through, now I'm character C, I'm going to be at the second computer doing the mini game again, I'm going to go through again, now I'm going to be character D, protecting character C, and it's insane, and it's so creative. So in terms of like the time travel gimmick and the story, definitely the best game out of the 3, by a huge margin. In terms of the gameplay, though, it might still be my favorite of the 3, but I have to admit it lost a little bit of its identity. So the previous games were very much trying to be faithful to the formula of, like I said, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, because I believe it's a lot of the same developers from Rare that went on to create the studio called Free Radical, which no longer exists. And this game is a Halo clone.
Oh.
And it is such a way in ways that are not obvious, but you can tell the gameplay that it's very much trying to copy is definitely, it is trying to rip off Halo in a way that is was not done very much during the era. So in the ways that's different from Halo is you do get to hold every weapon you pick up at the same time. You don't have to switch, which is nice. But the specific feel of it, and like the offhand grenade throwing and the vehicles, is very much just like Halo. The second level takes place on this like European medieval castle thing that's I think it's like the early 1900s, and there's like a guy going on some expedition there, and so there's a part on that island where there's literally a truck with 3 seats, a driver's seat, a passenger seat, and a gunner's seat with a machine gun on the back. And I'm like, this is literally just the 1920s Warthog is all this is. And then there's a level later on in like the future sci-fi future setting where there's literally a tank that controls exactly like the tank from Halo with a gunner position and everything. And I'm like, I see what you're doing, game, and I hope it worked for you at the time, because this was the last chance you got, unfortunately. So again, I don't say that in a bad way, but it's like it's very obvious in the ways they were copying Halo, and a lot of the I think they knew that was going to be their stiffest competition, because like literally on the box of Time Splitters 2, it says like first Halo, now this, and like I think even Time Splitters 3 has like some mentioning of it somewhere in the marketing. I don't know.
Not on that, because I just read through it, but I did notice the first Halo, now this on the second game. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, interesting.
So I'm not saying that as a knock against the game, but it does lose a little bit of its uniqueness moving from 2 to 3, because those games, those GoldenEye likes, as I said, as a like very, 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 very particular niche subgenre of first-person shooters, is very much a dead genre. And aside from that one guy that's trying to make like the pseudo spiritual successor to GoldenEye on PC, I think he's really calling it like Agent 64 or something like that. That's like meant to look like N64 graphics and everything. That's like the only thing I can, again, like we said earlier about Fields of Mystery, it's like if somebody is not doing what you want in like a specific subgenre, just wait long enough and somebody in the indie scene will do it for you.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, I do recommend that game, but and actually it's funny that those games from like the early 2000s have more satisfying moment-to-moment gameplay than the 2016 Call of Duty did, if that tells you anything. So that is it for games.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly as many this year, but we did consume other pieces of media. So I read some books.
I started a bunch of books and I didn't finish any of them, so I'm gonna let you run
Yeah.
wild with the books.
We watched. I wrote down all the movies and stuff that we watched this year. I don't know that I want to necessarily talk about all of them, but I will talk about a few of them. But I think the first, to give you something to talk about, we'll talk about a show we watched together, a show that I am obviously very passionate about, that you watched for the first time this year. So,
Berserk. I don't even know where to start with Berserk, honestly.
So this was the original 1997 anime that finally, for the first time ever, after being in rights limbo for decades, finally got a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, it does stuff that I like a lot. Like Griffith's fall from grace is exactly what I like to see from a character like him. Someone so calculative, someone so much in control, and just watching the mistakes happen when things don't go the way he thinks it was supposed to. Like Guts telling him I'm gonna leave was literally not ever on his list of things that he thought was going to happen, and as soon as that happened, he like spiraled. And started making every fucking mistake, and which resulted in pretty much the worst part of the and of this series, at least. Not because I mean that's just the start of Guts's adventures. Yeah. Unfortunately, like
what they call the Golden Age arc. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Guts a lot. He's just a little wild animal that you just have to earn his trust, which I also enjoy out of a character. but I also like Casca a lot too. And again, there's not really that many anime or at least stuff in these kinds of settings, because like there's like a whole scene where like she's not feeling good, and it's because she's like a woman on her period. And like I still feel like they handled it with grace and like respect, because it does fucking as a woman, it knocks the fucking wind out of you. You will be doing your best and just powering through it, but you feel like dog shit the entire time. And I like how they handled that with her, where she's like, she's strong, but she's still extremely feminine at the same time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting the way, because that's a scene that's very well beloved by fans of the series, where it's like, with this setting, it's obviously a very dark, very grim, very misogynistic setting where women are treated horribly. And Casca, being this warrior woman, is in a very precarious place because she is not treated as an object of beauty, but she is also still subjected to all of the bigotry and misogyny from male combatants. And so she has to be better than them in every way, which she is 90% of the time. And but in the case of that scene, it's like Guts does not judge her, and does not like he doesn't know what to do because he's like, how do women work? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And but in that naivety comes a level of like sincere earnestness that she appreciates, where it's like, oh, he's just dumb and doesn't know how to help, but that's better than him being a gross monster about it, you know? Like
Yeah.
his sort of the fact that he's been so emotionally isolated for so long has kind of spared him from being the kind of hateful person that most of the men in this society are. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I like him. I like the three a lot, and I liked the
Supporting characters.
the Band of the Hawks are very cute. You're definitely rooting for them. That's why the end kind of fucking sucks. But again, like, I wasn't watching this expecting to be happy at the end.
Yeah.
This is one of those where I'm like, there were some days where I'm like, I really do want to watch this, but emotionally and mentally, I'm just not there. Like, it felt like every episode that was like heartwarming, I'm like, it just ticked closer to, I know bad things happen. Like, this is berserk. Like, there are good moments scattered in an overall very depressing world.
Yeah.
And so I expected that. But I liked it, and I liked the art style. I loved listening to it in English and being like, that's Dr. Eggman.
Yeah.
Oh my god, and the Ash Ketchum with young Griffith was so fucking funny.
The flashback scene
God.
where Griffith is a child, it's Ash's voice from Pokemon, and Dan Green is multiple side characters in there
Yep.
too, which was funny. The General Boscone or whatever his name is, who's like a B villain for like one of the major arcs of the series, is Eggman's voice from Sonic
Sonic X.
X, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember names for the life of me, but I can't even remember what Griffith said in that voice that made us have to pause and stop. Like, it's not funny moment.
I think he says everyone is dead or something like this, like just like that. Yeah, it's
And
like that's an Ash line for sure.
No, we had to like pause. It's a serious moment, but
Yeah.
hearing it in that voice kind of just took us out a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
I'm glad you liked it. Obviously, it's one of my favorite anime or favorite pieces of Japanese media in general. I know that it's very much perched on this pedestal of greatness where that might make it a little bit difficult to approach because of the lofty expectations that kind of come with that. But I think this is a pretty digestible way to get into it, because even though the animation feels low budget and it cuts a lot of corners at times, I think it still is very visually appealing. And in terms of a lot of the like gross, gory, ultra-violent content that the series is known for, this anime, the 97 anime, is actually pretty mild about it compared to the manga, because there are whole arcs of nasty shit in the manga that's cut out of this show.
Yeah.
And we looked at some of that later because I realized that stuff was missing. And so there's depictions of like mass graves, and there's a B villain that is like a weird demon apostle character similar to a non-human antagonist similar to Zod that they fight in the last third of the story, that is completely missing from the anime because he is just so gross and vile and does so many horrendous atrocities that they just didn't want to bother. And I think that's honestly for the better.
Yeah, and again, like, even like towards the end part when everything goes horribly wrong, I feel like they handled those scenes very well.
You could make
visually wise, like,
you could make an argument that some of the fucked up subject matter that's in this series does not need to be there, but to the extent that you can argue that it's well placed, it is at least handled with a lot more tact and dignity than some other anime where it's just there for shock value. And I've already talked quite considerably about certain examples in that regard, but like, honestly, if you're afraid to watch the show because you're afraid of dark subject matter, I think that some of the gore and stuff in this show is easier to stomach, no pun intended, than some of the shit in like Dungeon Meshi. Because like I'm like people are like, oh, Dungeon Meshi is so wholesome and everything, and I'm like the fucking like weird vor shit of like being eaten alive and digested or whatever is way more disturbing to me than half of the shit in Berserk. So if you can handle that show, you can handle this show. It's literally fine.
Yeah, and again, like, it's okay for media to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, with respect to boundaries people set for themselves,
Correct.
it is there is still a value in the response that you want from a piece of media to be anger, sadness, or discomfort. There still is value to that.
Yep.
But yeah, I love Berserk, and I definitely appreciate you going on that journey with me.
It was good until it got bad.
Yeah. The only thing I guess to kind of briefly about the 97 anime is I'm still shocked, especially with the other adaptations existing, just how abruptly this one does end. And I do think that at least should be motivation for you to check out one of the other adaptations, whether it be the manga or the movie trilogy.
But we're collecting the manga, so it'll
Yeah.
probably be the manga.
Yeah, then to continue that arc after the end of the anime with the manga. So
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about a book that I read this year. So I read the sci-fi classic Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This book is the inspiration for the movie Blade Runner, which I have actually still not watched it. I picked up a copy of the Blade Runner director's cut to watch after having read this. But so far, at the time of recording this, my only context for this story, aside from little snippets I've heard about the movie, is this book. And it's a pretty short read, as you can see. I think it's like around 300-ish pages, like maybe 350-ish. Nope, I'm wrong. 220 or so. So pretty short. And it is interesting. Philip K. Dick wrote a lot of cool sci-fi novels that are the inspiration for a lot of stuff nowadays. So this movie, I'm sure you've heard this title, this phrase, I Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, in like it's used in so many different media. You've probably heard it 100 times. And again, this being the inspiration for Blade Runner. He also wrote Total Recall, which had a couple of movie adaptations, including one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He wrote Minority Report, which has a movie adaptation with Tom Cruise, which also, I feel like the anime Psycho-Pass, heavily influenced by Minority Report, in my opinion. Whether or not the writers would admit to that or not, it's basically the same premise. But this was pretty interesting. It's a far future sci-fi scenario where humans have basically... It's partially a utopian future and partially a dystopian future. It's utopian in the sense that humans have supplemented a lot of their day-to-day stresses and anxieties and inconveniences with technology. But that in and of itself is kind of a horrifying premise. Because like the first scene in the book is the main character, Decker, played by Harrison Ford in the movie, talking to his wife. And he's complaining about how she's in like a bad mood or whatever. And he's like, why don't you just use your machine augmented mood stabilizer device to like put yourself in a good mood? And she's like, oh, I don't want to do that because being kind of miserable is part of being human, and I don't want to like turn off all my emotions and just make everything just be a robot kind of thing, you know?
Always be happy.
And the plot focuses around a type of android replicant that is meant to be so lifelike that you can't tell the difference between them and humans. And there was a major fallout of this technology being introduced where they were outlawed. And so the main character, the job of being a Blade Runner, so to speak, is you're basically a bounty hunter cop that hunts androids. And so his job is to either arrest or kill them or both. And that involves this weird, ambiguous decision making of how do you tell if somebody is an android or if they're human when the distinction is so difficult to identify. And so the best scene in this book, I feel like, is when he is he's getting he's talking to like this. I'm probably misremembering some of this because I read this at the beginning of the year, and I don't know that I have necessarily the order of events or the characters 100% in my mind. But he's talking to a guy about the test that is required to determine if somebody is an android. And the guy he's talking to is like, why don't you try it on my wife here or whatever? And he's like, okay. And so they go through this test, and he's watching this little dial go back and forth and asking her a bunch of like mundane morality questions, engaging her response. And usually it is questions about like animal cruelty or food. And like the idea of using animals for food is one of those things that like potentially triggers a particular canned emotional response of the androids. And so he asked a question where he's like, okay, so you're at like a fancy dinner, and they are serving fried dog and fried catfish or something like that. And he's like, what do you do? And she's like, oh my god, we used to fry and eat fish for food. Oh, and he's like, she's an android. Because like no response about the fried dog thing, because it was too absurd for you to think about it as food. Like you weren't pre-programmed to be like, oh, dog food, that's unthinkable. But you thought of the thing that we associate with being food as food, and it triggered the negative response. And it was just like, it's such a nail-biting, interesting scene. And the rest of the book doesn't quite live up to that. Some of the conflicts and how they're resolved with some of the androids is kind of sad. And the main character himself is depicted as being kind of sad and pathetic. Like, Decker, the main character, is meant to be kind of pitiful. He's not Harrison Ford in the book. Like, he's meant to be this kind of unattractive, like, frumpy loser, and not like not Harrison Ford in the book. And so that's one of the things that they definitely changed, was making the main character more likable and more charismatic in the movie, from what I was told. Whereas he's kind of a loser in the book. And spoilers, the whole like last arc of the book is him like cheating on his wife to find out if him like sleeping with this android woman is the same, and if there's some meaningful distinction there between being a human and being an android and these lived experiences. And there's this weird ambiguity in both the book and the movie as to whether or not the main character himself is an android. And the point is that you're not supposed to know. It's like one of those twists where like the ambiguity of it is the whole point. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Definitely recommend it. Although it does have like, I don't know. It shows its age. It was written in 1968. And so there's a couple of things that haven't aged particularly well. Like I think there's one scene where the narration is like describing the details of a woman's body in a little bit too much detail for comfort, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So some just, I guess, misogyny of the time that hasn't really aged all that well. But otherwise it's I think it's worth revisiting as a piece of nostalgic sci-fi fiction that is informative of the things that it drew inspiration from. Saw a couple movies this year, not a whole lot of which were super noteworthy, some of which were re-releases. Like I went with my dad and with a friend of mine to go see the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3, and then went with that same friend in October to see a theatrical screening of John Carpenter's Halloween, which was pretty cool. But I think my favorite theater-going experience was this that we'll talk about, and it was you didn't go to the theater to see it with me, but I later showed it to you on Blu-ray, and I think it's the most noteworthy like new movie that we saw this year, right?
Yeah, so it was Superman.
This is James Gunn's Superman.
Yep. So let me just be completely clear. Never been that much into Superman. Like I've been okay is I've always been like a Batman girly because I'm stupid and angsty. But I grew up watching more Batman movies than watching Superman. So a lot of this was kind of new information that everybody would have known. Like me not knowing how much of a hater Lex Luthor is, completely new. I had no idea. I couldn't even tell you who like some of Superman's like main villains are. Like I wouldn't have known anything about Lex Luthor. He is a hater. I don't hate enough. People don't realize I don't hate as hard as I could, and you should be grateful for that. Because this man is a petty little bitch. And it's also another one of those where it's like super perfect, calculating, and then once one thing fucks up, it spirals. Like this is another example of like he did the Griffith thing where something in his perfect little plan went wrong, and then he started making a billion mistakes that led to his downfall. So, which again, I find super interesting. I like the fact that these super calculating characters are the reason they're miserable. Like it's like you are the reason it all fell apart. I will also say I don't know that much about like the Justice League. I couldn't even tell you that much about it, so it was kind of fun seeing what little of them I saw. Like, because I guess this is like the start of the Justice League in this scenario.
In this continuity, I guess it would be because this is a brand new continuity. It doesn't share anything with anything prior to it.
Correct.
I guess it's supposed to be canon with the potentially. I guess it's going to be part of the same continuity as like the Batman with Robert Pattinson, but we don't know that yet. We just know that there's going to be a Supergirl movie with the actress that appeared in this. So
okay, which we'll get to her. So Hot Girl was probably like one of the highlights. She like feral. And honestly, like a good mixture of what I like in a superhero, because it's like clearly when somebody is being fucking wrong, her being like, nah, fuck this. And dropping the man, like that was the right call. There is nothing like I respect Superman trying to be like the like perfect moral compass where I don't hurt anyone, I don't kill anyone, I everything I do is for the greater good. I like that, but there are some bitches in this world that fucking deserve it. Like there's just some people that no matter if you take the right path, they are always going to be terrible. They're never going to learn their lessons, and they deserve to have their ass beat to a pulp or whatever bad thing else happened to them. Like I like him though. I like this iteration of him. I think he's always been kind of dorky, but like, I don't know, like he really does just have the himbo energy very strong in this movie.
Yeah.
While it's also being like cute and dorky, and I like his romance because it's not perfect and pretty. It is a little messy. And Supergirl at the end was the most like family-esque interaction I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Like she's literally like, "Bye, bitch," and then leaves. Like takes her dog and leaves. Like I'm like I was very, very amused with some of the interactions because like they're just stupid. Like, they're all just idiots trying to figure it out because all of it's such new territory, it feels like, in this iteration. But yeah, overall, I liked it. Count me as a Superman girly, I guess.
Yeah.
I like him.
So I guess my context for this was prior to a couple years ago, I never really have considered myself that big of a DC fan, and the main reason was it just seemed so unapproachable because there's decades upon decades upon decades of built-up lore, and the way that comics are released now is very much this very frustrating way where it's trying to find out which comic is part of what timeline and what other supporting comics have storyline that ties into it. And I remember a rant from a friend of mine on that note where it's like, in order to appreciate one comic, you have to read this issue of this plus this issue of this other comic plus this issue of this other comic and everything. And it's just an incomprehensible mess that only works if you are a like dedicated like capital C capital R comic reader, and you do it often and you're already like habitually buying every issue, then it's fine. But if you're more casual, then it doesn't feel as approachable. And then it was constantly hearing from DC fans over the years about how much they hated every adaptation of everything that was coming out. And it was just like, the negativity was like, man, I really don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, because all the DCEU universe, all those live action movies, the Snyderverse and Justice League and Aquaman and all that stuff, I was like, I liked the Wonder Woman movie just fine. I thought that was pretty fun. But, and I remember liking Man of Steel okay when it came out, but I do prefer this quite a bit to Man of Steel, and I'll talk about why. But it was very much a difficult time to want to be a DC fan when it seemed like a piece of media, a IP where is very unapproachable to new people, and the people that like it in a very particular way and will gatekeep the hell out of you for not liking it the way they like it. And so I was like, man, it must suck to like really love DC right now, because you're getting just absolutely bombarded from both directions, where all of the mainstream stuff, like the movies, is like constantly being dunked on for being bad, and then the more inaccessible parts of it are like, oh well, you can't do it this way, you got to do it this way, by like gatekeepy fans. And so it's always seemed like something very difficult to get into. Had this conversation with a friend of mine. She got me on the track of some comics that she enjoyed. So I was like, what the hell, I'm going to take the plunge and try to get into a comic series for DC. Did that, liking it quite a bit. Consumed a lot of Superman media in the last year or two. There was a video essay by somebody that I follow was talking about good Superman stories and how everybody has a different idea of what iteration of Superman they like. And so made me really excited about this movie, because I was like, oh, a James Gunn Superman actually sounds like a pretty good idea. I know a lot of people are very cynical towards James Gunn's style of like comedy and movies, because they think of Guardians of the Galaxy and how many movies tried to copy that style with the very cynical, like asshole tongue-in-cheek humor that the characters have towards each other, and like just the general tone of the jokes. I think a lot of people think are very overplayed and overdone, and people are very sick of it. But I thought it would be a perfect fit for Superman, because when I think about the comics and when I think about Man of Steel, just a visually dark, blurry, gritty mess with like a grim, dark story and a broody Superman doesn't fit the comics compared to a bright and colorful, optimistic, hopeful story does, and I prefer that in this. So I guess to talk about the movie real quick, I prefer that as the visual style for Superman. I prefer that in terms of the tone of the story. I think that was very, very refreshing to see that for Superman, as opposed to, like I said, the grimdark stuff of the DCEU. And then I do like this new actor. I think he's fine. I love Lois Lane's actress so much. She was awesome. And I love that the two of them are already in a relationship at the beginning of this movie, and that she already knows that he's Superman. Mm-hmm. And so that lets them kind of, in my opinion, kind of get to the good part a little bit quicker than all this ambiguity of like waiting to reveal his identity to her and stuff like that. I love that this, I wrote a text review about this as well on the blog account if y'all want to read that for more detail. But I like that this is not a from the very beginning origin story, because it's been done to death. He's been around for a little bit, he's been established. We don't need a bunch of exposition on who Superman is, because he's one of the most iconic characters in all of fiction. Most people should have at least a basic understanding of who he is, or even not even need the fine details of the how and why. And yeah, I liked all the supporting characters as well. I feel like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner Green Lantern is the most James Gunn character in this because he is an asshole
Such a dick.
in kind of a fun way, I think. And Nathan Fillion is a staple of James Gunn. He's in most of his IPs. And yeah, definitely the juxtaposition between the rest of the between Guy Gardner and Mr. Fantastic or Mr. Terrific.
I think
Yeah,
it's
Mr.
perfect.
Mr.
Yeah.
Terrific and Hawk Girl is like a they point out without explicitly pointing out the flaws of Superman and counterbalance him very well, and I like that about it. But Superman does not compromise on his values in this at all because it didn't bother me when I first watched Man of Steel, but now it bothers me quite a bit knowing more about Superman, just how from a writing standpoint they forced him into a scenario where he kills Zod. Because like they're like, oh well, he had no other choice, and that's not a flaw. That's not a fault of the character. That's a fault of the writing, because they wrote him into a scenario where he had no other choice and forced him to compromise on his values in a way that is very uncharacteristic of Superman. Because and I've talked about this before, where with the DC, the big DC heroes, the reason why they don't kill people is very different. With the reason why Batman does not kill people is because he is imperfect. He knows that if he kills somebody, it will be like a slippery slope where it'll be far too easy for him to kill again, and then he'll be no better than the villains he opposes. Superman doesn't kill people because he is perfect, and he is like, I am this ultimate epitome of good, and I can get the job done without ever needing to kill people. And I think the sort of, it's more emotionally compelling to be like, oh yeah, I never have to kill someone because I'm just that awesome. And I just really appreciate that about some Superman stories. And I think it is just, it's an aspirational level of goodness that is like completely unrealistic, of course, but it's like, it really gives you that fun, hopeful feeling of like, yeah, you really can find a way to overcome these challenges without killing anybody, and like have that ultimate level of idealistic virtue and values, which it's something you would go to a piece of Superman media for and only really find it there.
I agree.
And that kind of, I'll keep this very brief, but it kind of ties into the comic that I read. I don't have it with me because a friend is borrowing it, but I read the entirety of All-Star Superman, which was a comic series that I think started being printed in 2007. And it was widely regarded by, from what I've heard, a lot of people as one of the better standalone storylines, where basically what's happening is Superman flies really close to the sun to save like an expedition, some like science expedition that's traveling towards the sun. They lost course of their ship and they were going to fly into the sun, and he goes and rescues them and comes back and finds out that his cell reproduction is messed up, and that he's eventually going to, his cells are overcharged, so he is more powerful than he was before, but he is slowly dying. And so it is a story about how, what could you do with unlimited power and limited time? And it is a really, really cool, very emotional story about what would the perfect, quote unquote, perfect person do with a limited amount of time and an unlimited amount of power. And so some of the individual moments in that are really, really, really beautiful, and I don't want to spoil it, so I'll kind of leave it at that. But I highly, highly recommend reading it. It was awesome, and I hope that the friend that's borrowing it enjoys it as much as I did. So I started another comic series in addition to All-Star Superman. So I'm getting into reading a Transformers comic series. This is what I guess they refer to as the Skybound comics, or the it's a new continuity. I think Skybound is the publisher, and Energon Universe is the storyline continuity, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, Skybound Comics, Energon Universe, whatever you want to call it, comics. So this is a new iteration. It's no longer
the IDW stuff anymore. This is a brand new continuity. I think this first was being published in 2023 is when this one came out, and I waited to get the paperback compilation. So this is like the first 6 issues. Yes, it's 1 through 6 is this one, and I have the second book, which is 7 through whatever of that one. And holy shit, this was good. Like, I didn't know what to expect. This was insane. Like, I highly, highly recommend this to anyone that has a passing interest in Transformers, because the intensity of the story and like the high stakes nature of it right from the first page is, I was like literally like glued to the page reading this one book kind of thing, because you normally expect like, okay, Transformers crash on Earth, maybe the Ark ship that they arrive on is inactive for a little while. You know, in the G1 cartoon, they arrived during like the prehistoric period, and you know, millions of years pass with them sitting there under the rubble until they reawaken or whatever. In this, it's like they crash, and there's like 1 or 2 Autobots online, and Starscream is online.
Oh god.
And so it's this frantic thing of like, oh god, what do? We need to stop him before he starts killing the members who are unconscious still. And it's like this really tense thing of like the Autobots like frantically trying to find a foothold and finding a moment of brevity to catch their breath and relax and get their shit together without getting killed. And it's like really intense. And there's scenarios with the human characters that ties into that. There's a moment with, again, just with the visual language of comics, where comics get to do things in a visual medium that they get to do a lot of show don't tell in a way that other written media doesn't get to do. Where and it's amazing how expressive these characters can be without pupils and without mouths in some cases. There's a shot, I won't spoil what's going on in the story, but there's like a human character that's injured, and it's like shot of human character injured, reverse shot of Optimus Prime's face, and he has like, again, the faceplate over his mouth, but it's just the eyes, and it's just like the glowing eyes pointed down, and there's so much emotion in that otherwise like lifeless face. And just huge credit to the artists that worked on this and the writers as well. Like, they did a phenomenal job, and I needed to read the second book here soon, but I cannot recommend this enough to people that have a passing interest in Transformers. And again, I hate that I missed out on like nearly 2 decades of IDW stuff, but I guess I could go back and read it, but unfortunately a lot of it in physical print is pretty hard to get, because one of the stores we frequent has some IDW compendiums that are like this thick per volume kind of thing. They're like $80 each. And I'm like, well, damn, I thought I was going to have a ability to collect this, but this is going to cost some money if I want it in physical print. So
yeah, we can get it eventually.
So the next piece of media that we want to talk about is not a game, it is not a movie, it is not a book, it's not an anime, it's not a comic. Well, it is a comic, but that's not what we watched.
It came out later after all of that.
This is, and this is something that I have a lot of nostalgia for from the early 2010s, because I watched it more or less as it was premiering. But this was all new to you. This was a piece of internet history. It is the internet web series that more or less popularized the character of Slender Man. I had Michelle sit down to watch Marble Hornets during Halloween this year. So what did you think of Marble Hornets?
Man. So, for context, I had heard of it as it was going on. So, I really like seeing it and seeing like what the Slender Man game took reference to. Because now I have context for all of that. What I thought about it. This is also another one of those series where things I didn't expect a good ending. You know, like
Yeah.
it is one of those where I'm like, I didn't expect a good ending. What I got was not what I expected. Cause like you're following along the line of Jay, and there is a lot of times where I feel like our pro tag was a moron. There was a lot of times where I'm like, Jay, what the fuck are you doing? And looking back on it, it didn't really matter what time he went into the building.
Oh,
At
to
any
Brian's
point.
house, yeah.
Like, there's not, because with the way that this like universe worked, they could just lose the gaps of time. Like, it didn't really matter. He could just be there. He could have gotten there during the day. Something could have happened, and the event still could have happened at night. Like,
Talking about Brian's house.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
that was one of them. But like, there's like plenty of times where like it pans to like even in Rosswood where it's like, why is it nighttime?
Yeah.
And you're like, why is it nighttime?
That is a pretty fun lore thing that it does with like a reoccurring thing of like random time travel almost. Like now all of a sudden it's dark.
Yeah, and there was a lot of times where you're like, what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen? I don't. And there was a lot of times where I'm like, I don't fucking know what's going on, man. Like, I'm just here for the ride. Like, this is insane, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't know who to trust, who not to trust, other than I didn't really trust Alex from the get-go, which
Yeah.
was correct.
The reason I asked you what you thought was going to happen is the speculation and the theory crafting was really part of the fun
Yes.
and part of the appeal of the show when it was new. And I'm very glad we sat down and watched it together. I'm glad that you did. You were definitely very engaged in it and that you enjoyed it. But it's like frustrating trying to show somebody this show for the first time nowadays, because even referring to it as a show feels slightly disingenuous to the type of experience you want the viewer to take away. I actually was like writing a little bit of a script for a potential video about Marble Hornets that I may or still may not still make. We'll see. But it's interesting because it's this ARG style thing. So you are meant to be immersed in the lore, like what's happening, and you are meant to like speculate and do this level of like decoding and deciphering to try to find the hidden meaning and try to find out what's really going on. And so like the Something Awful forums and all the other forums and pages where people would do the theorizing and the speculating and the decoding was like an extra layer of interactivity that the show had back in the day that you miss
Yes.
nowadays, where like the experience that I had watching this when it was coming out is an experience that other people cannot replicate, and it's very unfortunate because you kind of just have to suspend your disbelief and just kind of play pretend. And like, it's more fun when you pretend that it's real and that you can picture in your head the gaps of time between entries uploaded, and that you think about that as a diegetic part of the story. That there is gaps between, you know that when there's a gap between uploads of the entries, that's a gap for the characters as well.
Yes.
That it's like it's supposed to be this real world, semi-immersive kind of thing, and it's
Which just makes you wonder what the fuck Jay was doing for 6 months.
yeah, and we know.
Well, we know, but
yeah.
but there is chunks in those times as well that you're like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. So, watching it in the form of like a movie, like if you were to buy the DVDs, which I do recommend, you definitely want to support the guys that made this because they made an awesome project that is well beloved by the internet. Definitely support them and buy the DVDs. But if you watch it on the DVDs, you are very much getting this film-like structure where some of the entries feel redundant or that not a whole lot happens because this wasn't made with a 3-act structure in mind. It was made to be episodic, and it was made very much by the seat of their pants. Like they say themselves in interviews and behind the scenes stuff that a lot of the story was very much by the seat of their pants. They didn't know what they were doing, which is fun because from like a writing standpoint, when it came to hidden meanings and lore and twists and stuff like that, they could very much like be ambiguous, let the fans speculate, and then if the fans came up with something that was really cool, they could potentially reward that by using it later.
Yep.
And so I think this as a like multimedia project is like such a cool piece of internet history, and I think the thing I love about it the most is also that it's a love letter to backyard filmmaking, because it is deceptively made to look very amateurish, where it's like a camera in handheld mode where the person filming has no regard for camera stability or what the camera's looking at. It's just meant to be like, I am hoping to catch whatever happens on camera for my own survival kind of thing. But disguised in that is really, really clever edits and special effects. And I loved watching it this time and catching where cuts were put in and where they had to disguise edits. And I'm like, man, that was so cleverly, from like a movie making standpoint, so cleverly done.
Yeah.
And these guys were so talented, so ahead of their time. And I appreciate the series so much, like I said, as just a love letter to backyard filmmaking and plucky, cheap, zero budget, improvisational movie making. And I think the series is a huge achievement from that standpoint.
Yeah, and we also got blessed with Rosswood this year as well. Like, they just decided to drop that.
Yeah, coincidentally, while we were already planning on watching this for our Halloween thing this year, we got the first ever continuation of the series since the series ended in 2014.
Yeah, and it's super short. It's much shorter than the original, but God, the backlash that I felt when they started it, I was like,
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck is happening? Like,
It's very much a different continuity than the show.
Yeah, and it's in the tone, and the way they handled the tone is also incredible, because that's also one of those where you know what you're doing, you have it, this tone, this uplifting blog style video where Alex is plucky and chipper and all of this, and I'm like, this actually unsettles me so much more. This actually freaks me the fuck out.
Alex Crayley went from being a failed, pretentious college film student filmmaker to a failed influencer.
Yes.
Which is...
but the tone being so much uplifting versus what all of Marble Hornet is, that freaked me out. I was like, oh my god, This freaks me out so much.
I'm going to talk about the final novel book that I read this year before we talk about the final movie that we watched together. And I can't say a lot about this because the very idea of describing the book does it a disservice, and you're just going to have to take my word for that. So I read This Is How You Lose the Time War, and there's a little bit of a backstory behind this. So I'm doing the Yasuhiro Naitao retrospective, where I basically changed it from being all about Naitao to just about Gungrave instead of talking about Trigun, because I couldn't make video essays about anime anymore because of the way the copyright system works. But I was following a rather notorious Twitter account that was a Trigun, sort of a Trigun fan account, talking about the new anime, the Stampede, and they made a post about this book that went viral, and it said, do yourself a favor and read this book. Do not look up anything about it. Do not Google anything. Go in blind. Read this book. It is incredible. And I guess this is a popular book amongst whatever, newer generation or whatever. And the author found that tweet and appreciated it and signal boosted them. And so this person, this Bigolus Dickolus Wolfwood, was sort of a outspoken advocate for this book, and then later became sort of blamed for the fact that the Trigun manga got a proper reprint, and it's a whole saga that you have to be very online in that specific space to know about it. But either way, I was like, yeah, I'll read this book, what the hell? And so the only thing I can say about it is that the very, very, very basic premise of what you find out at the beginning, which is that it's this this far, far, far future super sci-fi war, and your main character is like a time traveling warrior and finds a letter from another time traveling warrior that is basically a challenge, and then the two of them start leaving each other letters in different time periods as they go throughout this conflict. And so it is the development of this rivalry between these two characters through these letters. Very, very interesting. And the way that the different settings are depicted is very much kind of this... It's hard to describe the way it's written, but like every page is written in incredibly visceral descriptors and detail. It's a very dense... It's a dense but short book in terms of how it's written, but the setting and like what time period and where the characters are makes little difference to them. It's almost like they're adapting to the different time periods, but it almost like it doesn't matter. Like they're very disinterested in the time period that they're in, and it's almost like a background detail, and what is more important is how the character kind of thinks and feels in that moment, and sort of the challenge, the rivalry sort of thing. And so that's all I'm going to say about that, because if I go any more into detail, it does the book a disservice. There are twists to that premise that I think are best experienced to just read it, and I do highly recommend it. I'd had a pretty good time with it, and it's a similar read to Electric Sheep. It was about 200 pages exactly. So you can read through it pretty quickly. I feel like I did like I don't know, maybe 50 pages a week when I was buckling down to read it, and got through it in 4 separate little chunks, so to speak. So it was good.
Yep. So our final media that we consumed literally last Saturday is a movie called Angel's Egg.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain the backstory of this one? Because I don't know how to explain the movie.
So our dear friend showed this to us, and it is this very beautifully animated anime movie from 1985, and the director is Mamoru Oshii, who is the guy that would later go on to make the Ghost in the Shell movie, as well as like Jinro and the Patlabor movies. So very well-loved director in the anime movie sphere. And the character designer is Yoshitaka Amano of Final Fantasy, who did those beautiful illustrations that were sometimes make up like the cover art of some of the Final Fantasy games. And so sounds like a match made in heaven, right? But this movie is weird.
This movie is so weird.
It is visually very beautiful. It's visually very depressing as well. It's a very dark,
melancholy.
Yeah, melancholy is a great way to describe this setting. But it has little to no story and little to no dialogue. What story you are given is basically like just a Noah's Ark allegory, where you're basically told that. And I guess I won't spoil like the twist of the visual we get at the end. It's really cool, but it's basically just a movie focused on only 2 characters: this girl who's never named and this older guy that's never named, and she's protecting this egg that she thinks has this sacred bird creature that will be reborn in it. And there's some references to Noah's Ark in there, where it's almost like, we are the survivors of the flood, and we need to repopulate the earth of these animals that were on the ark but died off. And it almost gives me the vibe of what if Noah's Ark had failed as a solution to the flood kind of thing, and all of the animals that he had on board there died and never got to repopulate the earth. And so it is this incredibly bleak, depressing, like it looks like a failed world where like there is no society, there is no life, it's done. And that kind of has a sort of bleakness that goes along with it that's very much evocative of some other post-apocalyptic stuff. Like Nier was the great example we talked about, where it's like
This feeling of you're fighting for a civilization that doesn't exist anymore. But as it turns out, the director has said on record that a lot of the religious imagery and symbolism is kind of just there more for aesthetics than it is for themes. And attempts to sort of read into the deeper themes of this movie are largely futile because he's like, dude, I don't know what it means.
It was just a vibe.
Yeah, it was just a vibe. It was very much a. This movie was apparently an expression of grief for Mamoru Oshii, and it shows.
Yeah.
It shows a lot.
Yeah.
And the only thing I think I genuinely did not enjoy about it is like parts of the animation where it would hold on the same frame for a very uncomfortably long time. Like you'd be looking at the same shot and you're like, damn, we've been on the same shot for like 10, 15 seconds. When is something else going to happen?
It didn't feel like, it felt like 5 minutes on one. I'm like, God, we are here way too long. And probably like a solid minute on one frame.
Yeah, is what it feels like, yeah.
Please move on. Like,
There was one frame that they were on for so long where you could see like the film grain in the new cell when they added in, because you see like the little tiny, when there's like this film grain effect with older movies and with hand-drawn animation where you can see like little bits of graininess in the film, and you could see that appear and disappear in the background because you were looking at the same frame for so fucking long. So
yeah, that I think is my least favorite part about it as well. I felt like the sigh of relief when the movie was over and our friend who recommended it was like, don't worry if you don't know what the hell's going on.
They didn't
either. And I was like, the sigh of relief that like all of us did, because we're like, I mean, I liked it. I just don't know what the hell happened. Like what the intention was, other than for me to feel like sad. Like I felt the sad, which also helps because the entire film is like blues and like the cool grays and whatnot. Like there is not really anything else color wise except for like the sky.
Yeah. It's
At
a
the
lot
end.
of very heavy black lines and
Which I love.
very harsh edges and like jagged geometry and stuff like that. Again, a very visually beautiful movie, but one that is like an emotionally rough sit kind of. So I guess it has a lot of artistic merit, but you should probably know what you're going into when you watch it, because if you're expecting something that is heavily character driven and story driven with lots of dialogue, this ain't it at all. So yeah, that's pretty much everything noteworthy that we wanted to talk about. So that's all the games we finished, the books I finished, and some noteworthy movies we watched. I'm very optimistic about 2026. I feel like I have complained in every single one of these recaps about struggling to find a routine, and I still feel some of that sentiment, but I feel better right now than I did last year for sure, because boy, that was a rough time, January of 2025, so I definitely feel better now than I did then, and I feel a lot more optimistic about sticking to a routine. And a lot of the games I remember when we did the 2024 and 2025 recap, I had talked about a lot of the games I wanted to finish and projects I wanted to do, and I failed at a lot of the ones I set out to do. And so a lot of the ones I talked about where I want to finish are still on the list. Dragon Quest V, Metal Gear Solid 3, the System Shock remake are all ones I like very much meant. Oh, Mass Effect 3, very much meant to finish in 2025 and just didn't. So, but I think there is a very good chance that all of those will be wrapped up and then some in 2026. I have some fun ideas for video projects this year. Obviously, with the Transformers retrospective completely finished, I do want to get back to the Muso videos and do the Dragon Quest Heroes video. I think that's next on my list, although it's still looking to be quite an ordeal to get through. There are some side projects, like I want to do that video about video game difficulty. I may still make the video about the bootleg handhelds and the enshittification of social media, which may be the title of that video, who knows.
A great title.
I could always start the Insomniac retrospective if I wanted to. I have that video called In Defense of Rage that I want to make, which is about Rage, the id Software game that came out in 2011, not Rage as a concept. We also we did something else really cool this year that we'll be feeding into a lot next year, which we started a live stream channel,
Yep.
which nobody's gonna watch. Like I don't expect anybody to really like watch the VODs, because it's really funny when you get, and I hate to like do this, but when you get recommended somebody's like live stream re-upload on YouTube from like a low sub count account, it's like nobody is watching like raw gameplay footage anymore. Like nobody's doing that. Like let's play channels and live stream re-uploads are pretty much dead on arrival, but I'm more so doing it as basic glorified cloud storage and a way to store those streams on there if I need the footage later, or as a way to, for our friends that want to rewatch them. I do know there's a couple of friends that are going to rewatch our streams and gameplay on there, but we'll be re-uploading. We'll be streaming a lot more. We'll be re-uploading our streams to the Stream VOD channel, and games that I may or may not play for a video essay will be streamed and uploaded there first. And I do think Dragon Quest Heroes is probably going to be one of the ones where that happens.
Yeah. And I guess I'm technically behind on my cosplay goals of last year. I did not finish all 3 of them. I only finished 1, burnt myself out, then didn't finish the other 2. I plan on finishing those 2 and starting my next one. Hopefully I can finish like a couple this year without burning myself out and fixing up Shion. But I do look forward to the streaming. There might be some art stuff that gets done, like some time-lapse stuff. One, because of shitty-ass AI stuff, if I want to do any kind of cons and table, I have to prove that I made my art, which means I have to do time-lapses, which are scary, but I will overcome my fear of people watching my chaotic art process, because it is.
Yeah.
And I have my own original story that I wish to make significant progress in, because I think really I want to have it as completed as possible before I'm 35. I've been working on this way too long, and it needs to be done so I can say, voila, I finished a thing. But other than that, I don't really know what I'm going to do game-wise. Like, I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
But I do want to read more, and I do want to watch more things. Because I know that there's, like, a massive list of, like, older animes that we all went through one day this year, where I added it on, like, my anime list of things I want to watch.
Yeah.
One of them being the original Trigun. So I would like to actually watch things, because I know I said it last year as well when we were talking about things. I did not read more, and I did not watch more things. So I would like to accomplish that this year a little bit.
Yeah.
But last year was just such a bizarre year. There were so many times where I'm like, I'm just tired and I'm laying in bed, and I'm bed rotting and doom scrolling. Yeah, and I don't want to do that much this year.
Yeah, I aspire to do none of that this year if I can help it.
I'm not going to say I'm not going to do it, because I know that there's just going to be times where I feel like shit and I'm going to do it, but I'm going to aspire to do less of it.
Yeah.
Which is a good goal.
I guess one thing I'll say as well, I completely forgot to mention, I meant to write this down so I'd have it on the list of completed games to bring it up in the video, but one thing crazy that happened this year that was really positive, and that will affect what games I'm playing, is I got a Steam Deck.
That is true.
And this was actually a gift from one of our best friends we've known for a long time, collaborated with some of our other friends to crowdsource the money for it, and everybody chip in to buy it for me for my birthday. I'm still just completely blown away that this happened. I cannot believe the generosity from my friends there. I think maybe they knew I was having a rough year and wanted to take the load off me a little bit, and they did that very successfully.
Well,
And
we just love you and appreciate you.
that shows. It really does show a lot, because I would never spend that. I have not had the capital to spend that much money on a single purchase for myself since we've owned this house. Homeowning expenses basically means I'm never going to be able to justify spending $500 on myself for a gadget. But having the Steam Deck now, because my friends generously collaborated to give it to me, has opened up a lot of opportunities for us to play some PC exclusive games for game night, which is fun, or play games that have console ports but their PC versions are more optimal, yada yada, and then playing some games that are PC exclusive that I've not been able to play before because my main video editing machine is a Mac, as you guys probably have heard me say in the past, and most PC games I can't play on Mac. So the majority of the games I'm playing on Steam Deck are either immersive sims from the early 2000s or from 1999 that I've never gotten to play before. So I'm finally playing the original Deus Ex and System Shock 2 and stuff like that. And or it is like new age retro throwback shooters, boomer shooters as they're called, which has a double meaning. Dusk, Cruelty Squad, Warhammer 40k, Bolt Gun, stuff like that, and I've been enjoying those quite a bit. And then the only like ultra modern game that I've played on the Steam Deck so far that was almost like a companion gift with the Steam Deck was Baldur's Gate 3 to play with the person that gifted it to me, and we have put only about 10 hours so far, which sounds like a lot, but it's barely scratching the surface of that game. In our co-op playthrough, her and I am liking it quite a bit, although I still don't feel like I've quite even scratched the surface of the complexity of that game and what all you can do. I know it's a lot of people's not only favorite game of 2023, but favorite game, like, period, in a lot of cases, and I'm open-minded going into it. I am having fun with it, but I don't feel like I've even come close to unpacking its secrets. But yeah, expect some Steam Deck games and some PC exclusive games that are on the completed list next year. But I actually did not complete a single PC game yet since having the Steam Deck because I'm playing it in very small chunks. I usually only play it like in bed at night for a few minutes at a time has been the way I go about it so far, or our dedicated Baldur's Gate 3 sessions, and that's been it. So I have not finished anything on Steam Deck so far.
Look at him.
Behold the round Pikachu.
Behold. I got him.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of plushies. I didn't get as many plushies, but I got some. I will never stop. I have a problem. I have a problem. Oh no.
The Jolteon with the cowboy hat.
He's just
not
fine.
included. Yeah, cowboy
Not
hat
included, but it's a good vibe for him. But yeah, I like plushies.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all we have time for. I think Slenderman is doing something to fuck up the battery on the camera, so I'm going to go shoo him away with some antipsychotics before I have an episode. So.
Dude, wait. Don't say that.
And we'll see you guys for some other project here in 2026, and we'll probably still be doing this in January 2027.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy to think about, but yeah.
10 years of us being together this year. Woo!
Yeah, which is really exciting. We're definitely going to make the best of that for sure. So
10 years.
we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.